Chapter 49-51. Xia Jinyuan was a man of action. He would keep every promise he made. Either he didn't say it or he would do it. He was a man of character. When Yi Qian left his room, her nose was a little stuffy. How was her Captain Xia fierce? He was very gentle, but only she knew his gentleness. After that, when the female soldiers talked about Xia Jinyuan's fierceness again, Yi Qian didn't stand up to explain because there was no need. It was enough for her to know that he was a good man. As for the talent show at the orientation party, Xia Jinyuan didn't tell Yi Qian because he forgot about it as they talked. At noon on the 28th, Battalion Commander Tian bumped into Yi Qian, who was eating in the cafeteria. He took his plate and walked over. When the female soldier sitting opposite Yi Qian saw this, she immediately gave up her seat. Yi Qian was a little surprised to see Battalion Commander Tian. She lowered her voice and asked softly, "When did you return to the camp?" As the end of the year approached, the atmosphere of the Lunar New Year was getting more and more intense. The military was also getting busier, especially at the border outposts. The people were celebrating the Lunar New Year, so the military increased their patrols to ensure the safety of the country. Battalion Commander Tian was busier than any other soldier. In order to ensure the safety of the various bases in the northwest and prevent criminals from sneaking in, Battalion Commander Tian couldn't return to the camp for 3 to 5 days. When he returned to the camp this time, he arranged for soldiers to be in charge of patrolling and standing guard. When he saw Yi Qian eating, Battalion Commander Tian suddenly remembered what Xia Jinyuan said a few days ago. He wanted to ask Yi Qian if she was ready. Yi Qian was confused. If Battalion Commander Tian didn't mention it, she wouldn't have known that she would be performing on stage. Facing Battalion Commander Tian, who was still full of praise, Yi Qian put down her chopsticks with a smile and said, "Instructor Xia and I are still discussing." "We're still discussing." The smiling Yi Qian didn't dare to say that she didn't know. She only said that they were still discussing. She really didn't know that Captain Xia would make the decision for her so happily. Battalion Commander Tian misunderstood and said seriously, "We have to discuss it properly. We can't just make a decision casually. If we can't come to a conclusion, I think we should change the program. I think singing is pretty good. Dancing is fine too. It's artistic and refreshing." "How good is that?" The corners of Yi Qian's mouth stiffened. He laughed dryly, "Then let's go with shooting. It's more interesting and hot-blooded. Literary and refreshing." Her forehead was about to break out in sweat. Talent was her weakness. Literary and refreshing were destined to be far away from her. Seeing this, Battalion Commander Tian let out a long sigh. "You Special Forces soldiers are really stubborn. Then you should discuss it with Instructor Xia. If it doesn't work out, it's also good to be in audience with us." At the end of the day, Battalion Commander Tian was still worried that something would happen. Yi Qian also wanted to be part of the audience, so he immediately chimed in, "It's good to be part of the audience. I like being part of the audience too. It's better to leave the stage to the talented soldiers. People like me will only make a fool of myself." Make a fool of himself? Battalion Commander Tian didn't believe it. "Oh, you're too humble. Actually, I also want to see Instructor Ye's talent show. If he can't shoot, then he can sing and dance." Battalion Commander Tian didn't believe it. There was nothing Yi Qian could do even if he didn't believe her. She really didn't have any talent. Instead of singing and dancing, she might as well shoot. After the meal, Yi Qian chatted with Battalion Commander Tian as they walked out of the canteen. After they left the canteen, Battalion Commander Tian immediately went back to work. Yi Qian rushed back to his room to wait for Xia Jinyuan to come back. The entire dormitory in the barracks was not locked. It was only occasionally locked at night when they went to sleep. After waiting for less than 10 minutes, Xia Jinyuan pushed the door open and entered. Yi Qian, who had been waiting for him, crossed his arms and looked at the man expressionlessly. Chapter 49-52. Xia Jinyuan did not expect Yi Qian to be waiting for him in the room. He could tell something was wrong with one look. Seeing this, he couldn't help but close the door gently, and even bolted the door. "Why do you look like you're in a bad mood? Did I make you angry?" Yi Qian would never bring his emotions to Xia Jinyuan in the army, so Xia Jinyuan directly asked if he had made Yi Qian angry. "I heard that Captain Xia is planning to show off his skills at the freshman welcoming party?" Yi Qian did not want to beat around the bush and directly stated his intentions. "Why did you include me? If I didn't meet Commander Tian just now, I would still be in the dark." There was nothing to be angry about, but he felt a little wronged. He could have told her directly, so why did he hide it from her? When did she not cooperate with him? She had always supported him in whatever he wanted to do. The self-reliant Yi Qian would only act like a little girl in front of Xia Jinyuan, just like how Xia Jinyuan would only act like a little boy in front of Yi Qian. It could also be considered a little fun between lovers. Xia Jinyuan only remembered this when he heard this. He did not even take off his military cap and quickly coaxed his girlfriend. "I didn't hide it, I didn't hide it. I was so busy that I forgot. If Commander Tian didn't mention it today, I would have completely forgotten about it." Not only was Commander Tian busy at the end of the year, but Xia Jinyuan was also busy. The 20 male soldiers he led were the best in the entire camp. The male soldiers had a 10-day patrol from the first day of the Lunar New Year to the 10th day of the Lunar New Year. Xia Jinyuan would also participate, so the training arrangements for the male soldiers had to be adjusted accordingly. Yi Qian did not know that Xia Jinyuan would leave the camp at 1 o'clock in the morning on the first day of the Lunar New Year and would not return until the evening of the 10th day of the Lunar New Year. She could not know all the arrangements in the camp, and Xia Jinyuan could not tell her one by one either. Although they were in the same unit, he could not casually tell her his whereabouts because of their close relationship. Yi Qian didn't question his explanation. Instead, he couldn't help but chuckle when he saw how cautious he was, as if he was afraid that Yi Qian would flip out. All right, I'm not angry. I thought you were deliberately hiding it from me and wanted to give me a scare on the day of the party." He was so busy and tired. How could she bear to let him coax her? It was just a small matter. Moreover, his attitude had already told him that he had indeed forgotten and had no intention of hiding it. Xia Jinyuan heaved a sigh of relief. "You really scared me. You rarely look at me like that. You've improved. You're even able to intimidate me." "I was pretending. You couldn't tell?" Yi Qian didn't believe her. With his ability to see the big picture, how could he not see through her intentions? Xia Jinyuan laughed. "I really couldn't tell. It's rare to see you like this. How could I have the mood to observe if you were pretending? Not bad. Come, touch my forehead." After he finished speaking, he bent over slightly and moved closer. Yi Qian raised his hand and touched it. His palm immediately became damp. "You're all sweating from fright?" That was a little exaggerated. "Yeah, I'm really sweating from fright." Xia Jinyuan grabbed Yi Qian's hand that he wanted to withdraw and naturally went along with it. "I'm already sweating from fright. Why aren't you wiping it for me and comforting me while you're at it?" "There you go again. Don't you usually scare me? Why haven't I ever asked for anything?" Yi Qian had always been helpless against his insatiable nature. Xia Jinyuan raised his eyebrows. "I've never stopped you. Feel free to ask for anything from me. I was hoping that you would ask for more. Your back is sweating too. Let's wipe it together." Chapter 49-53. Yi Qian, who was wiping the sweat off his forehead, was amused by his shamelessness. "Looks like you didn't sweat because of me, but because you ran all the way here. It's -9 degrees Celsius. How can I sweat from running?" "Of course you can. I've tried." He refused, but his hands were honest. He took a towel and wiped the sweat off his back. Battalion Commander Tian doesn't want to perform live target shooting. He's afraid that something might go wrong. Why don't you change the program? As long as it's not singing or dancing, I'll cooperate. Xia Jinyuan, whose waist was exposed, thought for a moment and shook his head. Let's just shoot. We'll leave them with a good memory before they leave so that they can set this as their goal. Even if we leave the Pioneer Battalion, they won't let their guard down. They're all soldiers who want to go further. Let them know that there's always someone stronger. Also, it'll be stimulating for them. Yi Qian definitely wouldn't agree if he said that he wanted to show off his skills. Then, he had to elevate his thinking. Yi Qian didn't insist when he heard that he had such an arrangement. We still have to practice. Also, should I be the live target or should you be the live target? Is there a need to discuss it? Of course it's me. Xia Jinyuan didn't hesitate at all and put himself in danger. He didn't think that he would be in danger either. He believed in Yi Qian's shooting skills and believed that she wouldn't put herself in danger. Yi Qian, who had finished wiping his sweat, put his hand on his back and said, "Okay, then we'll perform this." He trusted her so much. How could she let him down? Soon, their program was reported to the officer. The officer didn't understand what live target shooting was, so he asked a few more questions. After Xia Jinyuan explained the program, the officer's hand trembled. Even Instructor Xia, who was from the Special Forces, had such a unique performance. The officer couldn't decide on such a dangerous program alone, so he reported it to Political Commissar Tang. Political Commissar Tang, who had already heard about it from Battalion Commander Tian, smiled and said, "You can arrange it. They both know whether it's dangerous or not." Thus, the two of them happily decided to perform together for the first time. In order to ensure that nothing would go wrong, Yi Qian practiced secretly by himself after training at night. He rubbed the snowball until it was smaller than an apple and placed it on top of a clump of dirt. At a distance of 10 meters, he used his pistol to shoot. He had no problem shooting from a distance of 10 meters, and then he shot from a distance of 15 meters. He did this 10 times and did not fail once. Only then did Yi Qian stop practicing in secret. On New Year's Eve, the army did not hang red lanterns outside. There were only red paper and black words, "Peace," written by Political Commissar Tang at the entrance of the barracks. From the outside of the barracks, one couldn't tell that it was the new year. However, the canteen had changed greatly. There were colorful lanterns and strips that had been used for years. 10 soldiers competed to blow until their cheeks hurt. They tied up the 200 colorful balloons and pasted them all over the canteen. They also pasted several Spring Festival couplets written by Political Commissar Tang. The jubilant welcoming party entered the countdown. At this time, the male and female soldiers didn't know that their instructor Xia and instructor Yi would be performing tonight. They chose a total of 16 programs and took advantage of the time to complete the last rehearsal before the party started. It was also the only rehearsal they would have. Many of them were participating in the performance. After the party, they would immediately leave the barracks to patrol. They had already packed their backpacks and were ready to set off. Xia Jinyuan was also packing his backpack. He had prepared a lot of things for a 10-day patrol. Chapter 49-54. Yi Qian, who had arranged for the female soldiers to stand guard, thought that since the gala was about to start, she and Xia Jinyuan did not have a single rehearsal, so she came over as usual. She gently knocked on the half-closed door and heard a voice saying, "Please come in." She pushed the door open and saw Xia Jinyuan packing his backpack. Her heart sank. She locked the door and whispered, "Is there an urgent mission in the unit?" Every year at the end of the year, there were a lot of sudden emergency missions, especially a few days ago when the U.S. launched another military operation against Iraq. Several missiles fell on the civilian areas, and a total of 1,600 Iraqi civilians died in their sleep. At this time, Iraq was already hell on earth. Xia Jinyuan turned his head and saw her cold expression. He knew that she had misunderstood. There's no urgent mission. After the gala, I will be patrolling with the soldiers in the battalion. It will be a little long. So it's a patrol. Yi Qian, whose back was tense, was instantly relieved. As for how long it would be, since he did not say, Yi Qian did not ask again. She did not mention the rehearsal again, and stayed behind to give Xia Jinyuan the things she had prepared. They also had a patrol mission, which started on the 10th and ended on the 16th of the first lunar month. The patrol route was north of the base. Yi Qian also did not tell Xia Jinyuan that she also had a patrol arrangement. As soon as the necessities were packed, a loud voice came from the door. After Xia Jinyuan said, "Please come in," a soldier pushed the door open and entered. Seeing that Yi Qian was also there, the soldier did not show any surprise. "Sir, the battalion commander asks you to go to the office. There's something important to discuss." "Okay, I'll be right there." When Xia Jinyuan heard this, he did not even tighten his backpack and immediately left with the soldier. After Yi Qian tightened the backpack, she went back to the cafeteria to watch the female soldiers rehearse. When he was busy with work, she did not need to bother him with entertainment programs. The gala started at 6:00 sharp. The comrades in the cookhouse had been busy since morning. Basin after basin of dumplings began to be boiled in the steel pot. Basin after basin of dishes began to be stir-fried. The meal began at 5:30 sharp and ended at 5:40 sharp. At 5:55 sharp, all the tables and chairs were lined up in a straight line, waiting for the party to begin. The army could be precise to the second. At 5:30 p.m., the brightly lit canteen was filled with soldiers. When the soldiers who did not participate in the decoration of the canteen saw this, their tough faces were full of smiles. They sat down and took off their hoods. They could see that the lips of all the warriors were bleeding from the cold. When they ate, blood flowed out of the wounds and mixed into the food, which was then swallowed by the young warriors. Their hands, which were holding the chopsticks, were also bleeding. Some of them even had their hands swollen and frostbitten. Although their hands were not good-looking, and their joints were as thick as the hands of a weather-beaten old man, it was this pair of unattractive hands that held up the peace of their motherland, allowing billions of people to sit together happily and enjoy the New Year's Eve dinner, enjoying a peaceful, pleasant, and happy spring festival. At 6:00 sharp, the gala officially started. 2 female soldiers and 2 male soldiers were the hosts of the gala. Battalion Commander Tian and Political Commissar Tang went on stage one after another to give a speech. Finally, the company commander was represented by Company Commander Zhu to give a speech. Knowing that the soldiers wanted to watch the gala earlier, the 3 of them gave a speech for 10 minutes without wasting any time. Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan sat at the front. The 2 of them were only a fist's length away from each other, so they could still make small gestures in private. After the applause, Xia Jinyuan secretly held Yi Qian's hand and watched the wonderful performance of the soldiers together. Chapter 49-55. Although the stage carefully arranged by the soldiers was not gorgeous and could even be called simple, no one paid attention to it. All of their attention was focused on their comrades who were performing happily in the center of the stage. There were skits, crosstalk, singing, dancing. It was welcomed with cheers. The program list in the hands of the 4 hosts was a mystery program, after the male and female soldiers sang together. Gao Xiao looked at it for a long time and asked the male soldier who was with her, "Mystery program? What kind of mystery program do the male soldiers have? Didn't they all perform during the rehearsal?" The male host was a little surprised. "Isn't it the mystery program arranged by the female soldiers?" "No." Gao Xiao was stunned. "We only have 4 programs and they are all rehearsed. It's not us and it's not you. How do we announce it later? Just say that we have a mystery guest?" The male soldier thought for a while and felt that Gao Xiao's idea was good. "I think it's okay. Just say that we have a mystery guest on stage. Even our hosts don't know. That's really mysterious." Gao Xiao was not very curious. When it was time to perform, the mystery program would not be mysterious anymore. When the female soldiers went on stage to perform, the applause was several times louder than the male soldiers' performance. The male soldiers who went off stage went back to their seats and secretly punched the comrades next to them to show their dissatisfaction. The comrades in arms who were punched didn't get angry. Instead, they provocatively clapped even louder and brighter. Since coming to the vanguard battalion, this was the first time they had seen the female soldiers perform. It was so rare, so of course the applause had to be warm. The female soldiers were multi-talented. Difficult moves came one after another during the dance. Gao Xiao could even do a backflip without using her hands to support herself on the ground. Her legs even did a straight split, and then she bent her waist to do a split and landed steadily on the ground. Such a unique move made the male soldiers clap their hands until they hurt. Wonderful, wonderful! Too wonderful! Political Commissar Tang smiled at Battalion Commander Tian. Old Tian, in the future, they will be our pioneer battalion soldiers. You must be very happy, right? Ha ha, happy, happy. However, whether they are our pioneer battalion soldiers is still a question mark. So, don't get your hopes up. Battalion Commander Tian clapped and said with a smile. When he said that, the smile on Political Commissar Tang's face faded a little. What do you mean? You have to explain it to me clearly. Political Commissar Tang's mood to watch the program instantly turned a little dim. He still had to put a question mark? Were they not going to be pioneer battalion soldiers in the future? What's there to clarify? What else is there to be unclear about? Battalion Commander Tian, who was in a good mood, pointed at High Laughter, who was doing a few backflips. This female soldier is not bad, not bad. This is a unique skill. Political Commissar Tang hurriedly took a glance and happened to see that Gao Zhao's performance had ended. Political Commissar Tang, who was distracted and missed the best performance, asked, "What you said is unclear. How can I understand? What do you mean by that? It's still a question whether they'll be part of our pioneer battalion in the future? Could it be that something has happened? Old Tang, have you forgotten whether they can stay or not? It's not up to us to make them stay. It's up to them to get approval from the higher-up. Speak more clearly next time." Only then did Political Commissar Tang feel relieved. With the strict requirements that Instructor Yi gave them, of course, they can pass. Yes, Instructor Yi is indeed capable. If the female soldiers can't stay, it means that they are indeed not cut out for it. It's good to decide early so that they won't delay themselves. Chapter 4956. Battalion Commander Tian and Political Commissar Tang whispered to each other so that no one around them could hear them. Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan, who were a few seats away from them, naturally couldn't hear them. In their current state, if someone whispered into their ears, they would probably react half a beat slower. Yi Qian didn't dare to let Xia Jinyuan hold her hand all the time. Besides, she still had to clap. How could she put her hands down and let him hold her hand all the time? Every time she clapped, she was already half a beat slower than the soldiers. This was because the mischievous Xia Jinyuan liked to hold her hand tightly so that she wouldn't be able to clap immediately. Every time he saw Yi Qian glaring at him because she was half a beat slower than him, Xia Jinyuan found it particularly interesting and never got tired of it. After countless times, Yi Qian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Commander Xia, do you still have a 3-year-old Xia Jinyuan in your heart? You only find it fun when you see me in such a predicament? It's fun indeed. I can even let you look at me a little longer. It's worth it." Lieutenant Colonel Xia held Yi Qian's hand tightly again. His thin lips curved upwards, and his cold brows were tinged with deep affection. "I hope that every spring festival in the future can be like this, year after year, year after year, year after year. Just like that, from the old year to the new year, they were like trees with branches intertwined with each other, bathing in the sun together, weathering the rain together. They supported each other, leaned on each other, and shared each other's joys and sorrows for a lifetime. Yi Qian, whose heart was moved, secretly held his hand back and nodded. Year after year, year after year, year after year. To be able to spend year after year with him, no matter how difficult the journey was, she had no regrets. After the male and female soldiers finished singing a pop song, Gao Xiao and another male soldier who was acting as the host walked over amidst the warm applause. The seats that originally belonged to Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian were now empty. After the singing, it was time for the two of them to perform. As the host, Gao Xiao waved the program list in her hand. Her sweet voice entered the ears of every soldier. The next program is very mysterious. How mysterious was it? It's so mysterious that even as hosts, we don't know what kind of program it is, nor do we know who the performers are. I'm very, very curious now. Zhou Qi, how about you? Aren't you curious? Zhou Qi, a male soldier, was the host. I've been curious since I saw the program list. Now, I can't wait to find out what kind of mysterious program it is. Dear comrades, do you want to know? The male soldier, Zhou Qi, was very good at livening up the atmosphere. After he finished speaking, he pointed the microphone at all the soldiers. The entire canteen resounded with the voices of the soldiers in unison. Yes, yes, yes. Applause. Let's welcome the mysterious guest who is performing the mysterious show. After Gao Xiao finished speaking, she took the microphone and left the stage. As soon as she turned around, her eyes widened. She. Who did she see? Who did she see? Instructor Yi. Instructor Xia. She saw the two instructors. Gao Xiao was so surprised that she didn't pay attention to the long cord of the microphone. The tip of her foot tripped and she fell forward. Fortunately, the male host, Zhou Qi, had quick reflexes. He pulled Gao Xiao, who was about to trip over the black cord, back. Xia Jinyuan, who was walking up with a few apples, whispered to his girlfriend who was walking beside him, "Did you see that?" She was so surprised that she almost tripped. Just now, when the other two hosts saw the two of them, they wondered if they had done something wrong to make the two instructors appear. Later, when Yi Qian explained that the mysterious program was her and Captain Xia's performance, the female soldier was so surprised that she choked on her own saliva. She couldn't say anything for a long time. Chapter 49-57. The male soldier was calmer. He cleared his throat and asked what Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian were going to perform. Since it was already time for them to go on stage, Xia Jinyuan didn't hide anything and told them that they were going to perform the program suggested by Instructor Yi. The female soldier, who finally managed to catch her breath, choked again. Live target shooting. Yi. Instructor Yi was really going to perform live target shooting. Then, who will be the live target? The female soldier asked with trembling teeth. Xia Jinyuan tossed the apple in his hand. Who else could it be other than me? The female soldier inexplicably heaved a sigh of relief. She didn't manage to control herself properly, so her face relaxed a little. Xia Jinyuan then said to Yi Qian, "Your soldier seems to be hoping that something will happen to me. Look at her, she's obviously relieved after knowing that I'm the live target." Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The female soldier was so scared that she screamed in her heart. Oh my God! What a scary Instructor Xia! What a scary Instructor Xia! Can he read minds? She was only slightly relieved, but he actually saw through her. Yi Qian smiled slightly. It means that they don't want anything to happen to me. Isn't it indirectly saying that she's worried about your shooting skills and thinks that you'll accidentally injure me? Xia Jinyuan calmly retorted. He didn't rebuke Yi Qian, but the female soldier was so scared that her heart raced. Instructor Yi, I have 100% confidence in you. I can guarantee Instructor Xia's safety. The female soldier, who was on the verge of tears, almost swore to the heavens. When the gods fight, the little ones suffer. Two instructors, please do a good deed and let this little soldier off. Xia Jinyuan smiled and looked at Yi Qian. Did you hear that, Instructor Yi? Your soldier trusts you so much. As an instructor, you have to perform well. Don't let your hands tremble and miss the bullet. Just as the male and female soldiers were feeling extremely tormented, the announcers finally finished and invited the mysterious guests on stage. The two soldiers, who didn't dare to speak, hurriedly sent away the two gods who seemed to be a little aggressive. So scary, so scary. The smell of gunpowder is choking me and I don't dare to open my mouth. The two gods went up the stage. The female soldier felt as if she had run 10 kilometers. She collapsed into the chair. You attack me, I attack you. Do you think the two of them can leave the stage safely? The male soldier looked at the two instructors on stage and thought for a while before answering. Then we'll see if Instructor Yi will argue with Instructor Xia, but he should be able to leave the stage safely. Instructor Xia must have trusted Instructor Yi, that's why he dared to be a live target. Gao Xiao, who had quick reflexes, saved the situation for himself. The surprise came too suddenly. I was so happy that I almost fell down. So the guest performers for the mystery show are our Instructor Xia and Instructor Yi. Comrades, where's your applause? The clapping was like waves crashing against the shore. Wave after wave of applause rang out. The entire cafeteria was so lively that even the windows outside the windows seemed to be about to shatter and shatter. Gao Xiao dashed back to the simple backstage that was surrounded by camouflage dust-proof cloth. She said to the two hosts who were still patting their chests. The instructors appeared. Oh my God, I was so scared that I almost fell down. Luckily, Zhou Qi saved me in time. Otherwise, I would have lost a lot of face. Heh, you only saw the two instructors. You missed the most exciting part. As for me, I was so scared that my heart is still pounding. The female military host felt that Gao Zhao's performance was not worth mentioning, so she told Gao Xiao everything that had happened. Gao Xiao was dumbfounded. The fact that the two of you are still alive means that you are strong enough. Chapter 49-58. The female soldier replied with a lingering fear, Yeah, I can smell the gunpowder in the air. So scary, so scary. The two instructors together can only scare people. Their performance is also scary. This won't do. I have to watch carefully. Although it's scary, it's definitely exciting. Gao Xiao finished speaking in one breath and turned around to walk out of the backstage. She stood by the curtains to watch the exciting performance. At this time, the entire cafeteria was silent. All the soldiers held their breaths and stared at the front without blinking. Battalion Commander Tian's body leaned forward slightly on the edge of the table, his fingers tightly interlocked. He was very worried that something would happen. Political Commissar Tang stopped talking to Battalion Commander Tian and just stared ahead. Xia Jinyuan was already prepared. He had an apple on his head and an apple in each palm. What was even scarier was that there was a big apple between his knees. The male soldiers couldn't help but clamp their legs together. This performance was a little scary. Company Commander Zhu kept rubbing his hands. His expression looked like he wished he could replace Yi Qian and perform well. Yi Qian, who had retreated 10 meters, raised her gun. She only did a standard and cool action of raising her gun. Just as all the soldiers were waiting for her to finish aiming, a sudden gunshot rang out. Aya, what the F***ck? She raised her gun and fired, but it scared everyone. Many of the soldiers were so scared that their bodies trembled. Before they could react to the sudden shot, the second shot came. The third shot came. The fourth shot came. The shooting was over. His heart was in his throat and he was fully prepared. He didn't even dare to breathe recklessly for fear that he would startle the officers and soldiers. Is it over? It was over? So fast. They hadn't even watched properly. How could it be over? How could it be over so quickly? They hadn't recovered from the shock of the first shot and were still in shock. How could the fourth shot be over? It was over before they could watch. Yes, it was over. The 4 bullets first hit the apple on top of Xia Jinyuan's head. The blank bullet went through the apple and completed the first shot. The soldiers were still in shock when the second shot came and hit the apple between Xia Jinyuan's knees. The second shot was over. Following that, Yi Qian raised his arm slightly. It wasn't much, just a few millimeters. He fired 1 shot each from his left and right. After the third and fourth shots were fired, the live target shooting was over. Yi Qian put away his gun and saluted the silent soldiers. Xia Jinyuan shook off the apple crumbs on his head and picked up the host's microphone. He smiled and said, "Comrades, even though the performance was very ordinary, it was still Instructor Yi and I. Shouldn't you give us some face and give a round of applause?" The low and mellow voice reverberated throughout the canteen and drilled into the ears of all the soldiers. Finally, there was movement. It was really over. "Instructor Yi, one more time. One more time." No one knew who shouted excitedly, but the entire cafeteria was instantly filled with voices. The company commanders of 3 companies took the lead and stood up, waving their arms. "Let's do it again, let's do it again. One more time. One more time." The voices were very, very loud and very, very excited. It was so loud that Xia Jinyuan took a step back and raised his microphone to answer the soldiers. "I'm sorry, but winter fruits are very precious. We only managed to apply for 4 apples. The performance is over. I'm very gratified by your reaction. Thank you, everyone." Chapter 49-59. This was the effect that Xia Jinyuan wanted. Only when they missed him could they remember that there was once such an instructor who showed them how strong a strong person was. They would remember him for the rest of their lives and never forget him for the rest of their lives. Just like Uncle Chen, the world-class sniper King in the late 1970s. Even though he had left the throne for decades, Major General Yang still recognized Uncle Chen at first sight. He was still amazed by Uncle Chen's style. He hoped that his little fox would leave the Northwest military camp. Years later, her footprints would still be left on this vast, yellow, barren, and vast land. Yi Qian didn't want to perform again. Once was enough. She loved shooting and sniping. She just needed to silently enjoy the pleasure of shooting a bullet. She didn't need the audience to support her, nor did she need to be praised. She just wanted to enjoy the process alone and pursue a higher realm alone. She just wanted to be alone. Battalion Commander Tian didn't want to think about it anymore. He wiped his face and said to Political Commissar Tang, "Did you see it clearly?" "I didn't see it clearly. I want her to do it again." He knew that Xiao Ye's marksmanship was good, but he didn't know that her speed was more frightening than her marksmanship. No, it was the combination of speed and marksmanship that was scary. How could a person shoot so fast? He only saw her raise her hand and she didn't even pause for a second. She just raised her hand and shot. It was fast, steady, and accurate. He was nervous for a long time. His hands were red from clenching, but what was the result? The result? The result. It was over. He was worried for a long time and wanted to see Xiao Yi shoot. In the end, he was nervous for nothing. Battalion Commander Tian felt a little stupid. Political Commissar Tang? Political Commissar Tang also wanted to see it, but he tilted his head slightly and said in a low voice, "There's no need to perform on stage. When we reach the shooting range, we can ask Xiao Yi for guidance. Such accurate shooting, performing once is just to liven things up. Let's do it again." Although everyone just wants to see Xiao Ye's shooting skills, it's more for entertainment. It shouldn't be for entertainment. We should respect a sharpshooter. Battalion Commander Tian's face was solemn. "That's right. I was careless." Seeing that the soldiers had not retreated, Battalion Commander Tian stood up. When Xia Jinyuan saw Battalion Commander Tian walking over, he immediately handed the microphone to Battalion Commander Tian. Before Battalion Commander Tian could speak, the soldiers had already quieted down. "Warriors, I would like to say a few words." Taking over the microphone, Battalion Commander Tian faced all the soldiers with a serious expression and said in a deep voice, "What instructor ye brought tonight is not a wonderful performance, but a superb shooting. I understand that you want to see Instructor Ye's wonderful shooting again, but please remember that such exquisite shooting is not achieved in a day. It is Instructor Yi who has practiced hard for several years to achieve today's result. A true powerhouse must have put in unimaginable effort, blood, and tears. Therefore, I hope that the soldiers will respect Instructor Yi and thank her for letting you see the exquisite shooting of a sharpshooter. Now, all warriors, please stand up." Hua. The figure below the stage stood up solemnly. Battalion Commander Tian, who was facing the warrior, turned to face Yi Qian. His bright and spirited eyes stared at Yi Qian. With the topic in hand, he said in a deep voice, "Salute." Swoosh. A true powerhouse should be respected. The stronger they were, the heavier the responsibility they shouldered and the more effort they put in. They should be respected. Chapter 49-60. Yi Qian, who was ready to get off the stage, was stunned by Battalion Commander Tian's words and the soldiers' salute. He immediately saluted back to all the soldiers below the stage. Xia Jinyuan, who was standing beside him, saluted to the soldiers and Yi Qian. Backstage, Gao Xiao, Zhou Qi, and the other hosts saluted to Yi Qian even though Yi Qian couldn't see them. The female soldiers led by Yi Qian had admiration in their eyes as they saluted to Instructor Yi. It was their honor to be trained by Instructor Yi. It was an honor to be respected by others. Looking at the girl beside him, Xia Jinyuan's eyes were filled with deep admiration. His girl would definitely have more glory in the future. The banquet ended at 9 o'clock. The soldiers neatly lined up and left. Xia Jinyuan whispered to Yi Qian, "Let's stay here tonight until the new year. I'll wait for you." With the previous excitement, his girl would no longer belong to him. When Yi Qian was surrounded by the female soldiers excitedly talking, Xia Jinyuan, who was standing in front, looked deeply at Yi Qian. After receiving Yi Qian's salute, he smiled and turned to leave. The one surrounded by the female soldiers now was Instructor Yi, not his girlfriend Yi Qian. The female soldiers always knew that Yi Qian's marksmanship was very good. They could tell from their training. However, they had never seen Yi Qian's shooting speed. Yi Qian always fired at a normal speed during training. They had never seen her shooting speed that was different from normal people. Today, the most shocked people weren't the male soldiers, Battalion Commander Tian, Political Commissar Tang, or the company commanders, but the female soldiers. They hadn't completely recovered from the shock yet. They just wanted to have a good chat with Instructor Yi. Yi Qian wasn't in a hurry to find Xia Jinyuan because of this. He patiently chatted and explained to the female soldiers, "Actually, Instructor Xia already told you before. You just didn't pay much attention at the time. It's not that I'm hiding anything from you. I just don't want to add to your psychological burden. Now that we don't have much time left together, you need to bear some psychological burden. The military sent me here to train all of you. The assessment after 6 months will most likely be based on me as the instructor. I hope that in the time to come, you will work harder towards your dreams and become a member of the 1st Female Special Forces." Yi Qian chatted with the female soldiers until 11 o'clock. They chatted until the cold wind outside blew into the room and the female soldiers felt very cold. Only then did they leave. They wished each other a happy new year in advance and gave their most sincere New Year blessings to their comrades before returning to their dormitory. Xia Jinyuan did not sleep. He had been waiting for Yi Qian to arrive. They had promised to stay up for the new year together, to bid farewell to the old and welcome the new together. His girl would definitely come as promised and would not miss the appointment. At 11:10, Yi Qian, who was wearing thick winter clothing, pushed open the door to Xia Jinyuan's dormitory. The lights were off in the room, and it was so dark that he couldn't even see his own fingers. Even so, Yi Qian knew where the man she loved was standing. She walked straight over and reached out to hold the hand that had reached out from the darkness. "Sorry, I'm late," she said in a low voice. Xia Jinyuan smiled. "You're not late. The new year isn't here yet. I didn't miss the appointment. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. Sometimes waiting is also a kind of happiness. Knowing that you'll come as promised, there's hope in my heart, so I don't feel that it's been too long." Xia Jinyuan held her hand tightly. His words were full of satisfaction. Chapter 49-61. The two of them had known each other for many years, but this was the first time they were in the same room. They held hands and rested their heads on each other's shoulders. They placed a small alarm clock on the desk and sat on the bed, talking softly as they waited for the new year to come. In the capital, the family Xia's old residence was bustling with noise and excitement. Even the old master and old madam were in high spirits. They sat in thickly cushioned armchairs and smiled kindly as they watched the younger generation bustle with noise and excitement. This year, Xia Yiwei and Hou Zi returned to the old residence to celebrate the new year. Accompanying them were a pair of twins who could run around the courtyard faster than rabbit. Hou Zi, who had washed his hands in a golden basin, no longer had the aura of a bandit from the underworld. Every night, other than returning home late from social engagements, he would leave work early and return home early to accompany his wife and children. In his words, he was an orphan without parents and had never had a home. Now that he finally had one, he would be struck by lightning if he didn't cherish it. The outside world was a colorful world, but Hou Zi, who was worth more than 10 billion yuan, had already swam around the colorful world. He was tired, and finally knew how to return home. Xia Yiwei, who had waited for him for more than 10 years, finally made this young man, who had dared to whistle at her and courageously chase after her, look forward to returning home. Although he was tired, resentful, and even on the verge of giving up, there were too many ties when he was young. No matter how tired or resentful he was, he couldn't leave each other. Now that the family of 4 was living a happy and blissful life, the husband and wife cherished it very much and didn't even quarrel. Suddenly, there was the sound of a child crying outside. Hou Zi, who had been chatting with eldest uncle a second ago, changed his expression and said, "Sorry." He quickly got up and jogged into the courtyard. On the other side, eldest aunt said to Xia Yiwei, "Debao is crying outside. Xiaobao must be bullying Debao again. Quickly go and take a look." Auntie was carrying a baby in her arms. He was the 4th child in the family, Xia Yuzheng. He was the son of Xia Yiwei's younger brother from the same mother. He had just turned 1 year old and could not walk steadily, stumbling around. The baby had fallen asleep a long time ago, and he was comfortably nestled in his aunt's arms. His little mouth would pout from time to time, and his pink little face was delicate and pretty. Especially his eyelashes, they were thick and curly, and he was an extremely beautiful little boy. Eldest aunt was carrying one in her arms, so it was naturally inconvenient for her to take care of the other. Seeing that her niece Xia Yiwei didn't move, she thought that she hadn't heard her, so she reminded her with a smile. She glanced at Xia Yiwei outside the window and said with a smile, "I don't need to go. Hou Zi will take care of her." Although the family summer mansion was lively this year, the 4th son, Xia Yuzheng, and his wife did not go home because of work. They only sent their baby back to the mansion. The 3rd son, Xia Yui, was also absent. His wife brought his 6-year-old son back to the mansion. Including the 6th son, Xia Jinyuan, the mansion was short of 4 people this year. Upon hearing this, eldest aunt smiled elegantly. Even a slight smile made her look especially dignified. After suffering comes happiness. That's good too. You should let them take care of the children more. The children have to be closer to their fathers so that they can do things more boldly in the future. Xia Yiwei tucked her black hair behind her ears and revealed a gentle smile. Don't worry. Ever since Da Bao and Xiao Bao were born, Ho Zi can't wait to stay at home with the two children every day. Sometimes I'm the one who's annoyed and push him out to work. He's already in his 40s, but he can still play with the two children so enthusiastically. Sometimes I even think that there's another child in the family. Speaking of the eldest son, Xia Lingxiao, and the second son, Xia Yiding's wives laughed. Their sister-in-law's words were full of disdain, but there was no disdain on her face. There was only satisfaction. After suffering comes happiness. In the beginning, it wasn't just a little bit of suffering. It was the suffering that they didn't dare to tell their family. The sweetness now was all to make up for the bitterness of the past. Chapter 49-62. Ho Zi carried Da Bao, who had been hit in the head by Xiaobao's snowball, back to the house. Old Madame Xia couldn't bear to see her great-grandson cry, so she quickly stood up from the master chair. "Oh, my dear great-grandson, don't cry. Don't cry. Let me carry you." Although the old madam was old, she was still so energetic that she could whip Commander-in-Chief Xia with a horsewhip some time ago. She could even carry a 4-year-old baby once. But Ho Zi didn't dare to let old Madame Xia carry her. She quickly said, "Grandma, sit down. I'll coax him." A man in his 40s was in his prime. He was handsome and rich. Even if he held a baby in his arms, he would still be a handsome father. Commander-in-Chief Xia also said, "Mom, you can sit down and hold him. You'll twist your waist if you stand." "I can whip you. How can I twist my waist when I hold my great-grandson?" Old Madame Xia said. She directly killed Commander-in-Chief Xia. What else could Commander-in-Chief Xia say? He quickly left. Ho Zi didn't dare to carry the crying Da Bao to old Madame Xia. She didn't dare to carry him until she coaxed him. On the TV that was broadcasting the Spring Festival Gala, one of the cameras swept to several soldiers in military uniforms sitting at the front table. They were all senior colonels, major generals, and lieutenant generals. Xia Shuo, the son of the eldest, Xia Lingxiao, was 12 years old this year. He whispered in old Master Xia's ear, "Great-grandfather, I just saw Grandpa." Old Master Xia also saw his eldest son, Xiangua. He touched his great-grandson's head and smiled kindly. "Well, this is the dignity that the country gives to your grandfather. Your grandfather has worked hard these years." It was snowing heavily outside the window, but it was warm inside the window. Accompanied by the younger generation, old Master Xia and old Madame Xia ate fruits with a smile, watched the Spring Festival Gala, and waited for the New Year's bell to ring. As for the younger generation who didn't return home after a family holiday, the elders at home were already used to it. It was rare for a family holiday to have a reunion New Year. 12 o'clock was about to arrive. Two people in a certain Northwestern Army unit stared at the small alarm clock together. Their hands clenched tightly as they began the final countdown to the arrival of the new year. 3-2. Before the number 1 was reached, Xia Jinyuan suddenly leaned forward and kissed Yi Qian on the lip. The two of them welcomed the arrival of the first year with a passionate kiss. "Happy New Year, my favorite girl." He kissed her deeply, transmitting the love that came from the depths of his heart. Yi Jian responded to his kiss and hugged his waist, letting herself be held in his arms as they welcomed the new year together. The New Year's bell had already rung. Yi Qian, who had just ended the kiss, could finally take a breather. She immediately sent her New Year's greetings to the man beside her. "I hope you can spend more time with me in the future to say goodbye to the old and welcome the new. Although it's a little difficult, I'll try my best." Xia Jinyuan smiled and lowered his head to peck Yi Qian's red lips. Year after year, I'll always have you by my side." The most beautiful phrase of all was "time flows like water." The two of them, who were welcoming the new year together, gave themselves some time to adjust their breathing. Then Yi Qian picked up the phone and dialed home. As soon as the phone rang, it was immediately picked up. Then, old Master Fu's loud and clear voice came through. My little princess is calling Grandpa. Before Yi Qian could speak, her eyes were already wet. Grandpa picked up the phone after just one ring. It was obvious that Grandpa had been sitting by the phone all this time. Yi Qian didn't dare to choke. She sniffed before she dared to speak. Xia Jinyuan, who was beside her, put his arm around her shoulders to comfort her. Chapter 4963. The TV host was broadcasting New Year's greetings to the entire nation. As old Master Fu listened to his granddaughter's greetings, he smiled and said, "Good, good, good. Grandpa is doing very well. Grandpa, you must be healthy and strive to live to 1001. Ha ha ha, Happy New Year, my good grandson." In the new year, Yi Qian wished old Master Fu good health and no illness or disaster. The two of them chatted for 10 minutes before old Master Fu took the initiative to hang up. When Xia Jinyuan heard old Master Fu asking Yi Qian to hang up, he quickly whispered to Yi Qian, "Don't hang up, I haven't finished." He was afraid that Yi Qian would put down the phone. Old Master Fu was surprised to hear Xia Jinyuan's voice. He didn't know that the two young people were celebrating the new year together, so he asked where they were celebrating the new year. Xia Jinyuan smiled and said that they were celebrating the new year outside the military base. Old Master Fu didn't ask further. Celebrating the new year outside the military base, the emphasis was on the word outside. Old Master Fu was wise and didn't ask too much about things that shouldn't be asked. In the end, he reminded Xia Jinyuan to take good care of himself and to rest properly if he was tired. He chatted with Yi Qian for a while more before hanging up. Yi Qian, who had hung up reluctantly, couldn't immediately send Father Fu New Year's greetings because there was no way to contact Father Fu. She only knew the approximate location of Father Fu, but didn't know the exact address. They had reunited for less than 24 hours in September, but they hadn't seen each other until now. The father and daughter were less than 50 kilometers away from each other, and they hadn't seen each other for almost half a year. Then, she called the family Xia's mansion. Yi Qian also gave Old Master Fu and Old Madame Fu New Year's greetings. Old Master Fu and Old Madame Fu were so happy that they hung up the phone and smiled for a long time. When the two of them lay in bed, Old Madame Fu said to Old Master Fu, "Now that sixth brother's relationship is going well, I can finally rest assured." Shao. She only said one word and did not continue, as if it was a taboo. "What are you worried about, old woman? Do you really think that our sixth brother will be alone for the rest of his life?" The old man snorted again. "Who is sixth brother's biological mother? How can you believe what she says?" She sounded like she was having a headache over her ex-daughter-in-law. She had clearly read a lot of books and understood herself. However, when it came to others, even her own son, she was completely muddle-headed. The fortune-teller's words were also brought home and told to old mistress. Moreover, it was passed down so vividly that old mistress almost fainted from anger. Which mother would say that her son would have the life of a lonely old man? Only his ex-daughter-in-law could do that. Look at old Six and little Yi. The two of them have known each other for so many years. Their relationship is deep and not shallow. Let's see who's the one with the fate of being lonely. Old Master Fu's voice was a little cold. Some time ago, she even schemed against Yunyin. She thought that by getting hold of Yunyin's weakness, she could make Yunyin do things for her and lead her to us. Look at how old she is already. She still does all those shameless things. Only shameless people do shameless things. All those shameless things she said in the past were all for the sake of getting a divorce as soon as possible. You're already over 25 years old. Why are you still holding on to it in your heart? Old mistress sighed. How can I not remember it in my heart? If it wasn't for her, I'd probably have forgotten about it long ago. Chapter 4964. Old Madam still had a knot in her heart at the mention of the past. Then you can forget that your granddaughter-in-law just gave us a New Year's greeting over the phone. Old Master Yi laughed again, and his voice was not as cold as before. I think it'll take at most 3 years. She might even be able to carry sixth brother's child. Old Madam said, that depends on whether little Yi agrees or not. If she doesn't agree, I'll support her. She's not any worse than sixth brother. She can't ruin her future just because she's pregnant. No, sixth brother has his own views. He can't bear to ruin little Ye's future. You're just waiting to carry sixth brother and little Ye's great-grandchild. It's still a great-granddaughter. Xiao Bao is the only great-granddaughter in the family. Do you have the final say? Go to sleep. Those old subordinates of yours will come early to look for you tomorrow. Old Madam also wanted to carry a great-granddaughter. Family Xia had more males than females. There had always been only one daughter in the family for several generations. It was better to have a few more daughters. Old Madam and Old Master Yi were old and had trouble sleeping. Although they went to bed early at night, they would wake up several times in between. No matter how late they slept, they would still wake up at 5 in the morning. When people were old, they would have trouble sleeping. In the early morning of the first day of the new year, some people had already fallen asleep. Some people were still partying. There were also people dressed in military uniforms and carrying steel guns. They faced the fierce cold wind and escorted the thousands of reunion lights behind them. Yi Qian personally put Xia Jinyuan's backpack on his back and fastened his belt. He then handed the steel gun to the young soldier who was ready to go. Be careful. Wait for me to return to camp. After putting on his backpack, Xia Jinyuan, who still had 5 minutes left, held the gun with one hand and hugged Yi Qian's shoulder with the other hand. Rest early. With that, he let go of his arm and smiled at the girl who was waiting for him to return to camp. He turned around, opened the door, and left without looking back. Yi Qian watched him leave and waited for him to return. From the first day of the Lunar New Year to the third day, Yi Qian led the female soldiers to stand guard. On the fourth day of the Lunar New Year, Yi Qian led the female soldiers to train normally until the 8th day of the Lunar New Year. On the 8th night of the Lunar New Year, which was also 3 o'clock in the morning on the 9th day of the Lunar New Year, Yi Qian was awakened from his sleep by a knock on the door. He immediately sat up from his bed and quickly turned on the light. Little Yi, gather. 3 minutes. It was Company Commander Zhu's voice. At 3:05 a.m., Yi Qian, together with Company Commander Zhu and 20 male soldiers, left the barracks. They got into a truck that had anti-skid chains installed on the wheels and headed to an unknown destination. You can sleep for a while more. It's just a little bumpy, Company Commander Zhu said to Yi Qian, who was sitting next to him, with a smile. Does it feel like the cradle you slept in when you were young? I'll shake you until you fall asleep again and again. After a bumpy ride, Yi Qian, who was suspended in the air, replied with a smile, I don't think any baby can stand a cradle that can shake their bones. Ha ha, it's just an example. Company Commander Zhu laughed loudly. You're here to help out on a temporary mission. It's going to take a long time, so sleeping from time to time will help you pass faster. Yi Qian thought for a while before asking, what temporary mission? It's an experiment. We need soldiers to guard it for 6 days. The experiment will start in 3 days. We'll clean up the surroundings and set up sentry posts. There were many places in the military base. If there was an experiment that needed to be completed, it would definitely be a big one. Moreover, it would be directly related to military strength. When Yi Qian heard that it was such an important mission, even his expression became extremely serious. Before they set off, she thought that there might be something that needed to be resolved. She didn't expect that it would be to protect the surroundings of an experiment. Chapter 4965. This was the first time that Yi Jian had witnessed the birth of a new technology since her military service. It was also the first time that she had participated in a top-secret experiment. Even though she had always been calm, she was a little excited at this moment. As a soldier, how could she not be happy to see another general joining her country's military strength? The experiment was carried out hundreds of kilometers deep in the Gobi Desert. This place was truly deserted. Apart from our army, no one else had set foot here. This was a true forbidden area. It was a forbidden area that was not even marked on the map. Countless unknown experiments were carried out in this forbidden area. They set off at 3 a.m. on the 9th day of the Lunar New Year and arrived at the Gobi Desert at 10 a.m. on the 11th day. There was no time to rest after they got off the bus. Yi Qian was led by Company Commander Zhu and accompanied by technical soldiers to patrol the Gobi Desert with a radius of 100 kilometers. This included herding animals and using sound waves to chase away birds. Don't underestimate the birds flying in the sky. They were most likely equipped with high-definition high-altitude cameras that were transmitted through satellite. Therefore, it was extremely important to chase away birds. Not a single bird could be allowed to fly into the sky above the experiment. There are too many countries outside who want to steal our military's secrets, especially the Western countries. They can't stand the rise of our country. They only want our country to remain in an era where we still need the help of the former Soviet Union to complete our research and development. Backwardness, poverty, ignorance, these are all their wishes. But how can our country be led by the nose? If we fall behind, we will be beaten. Everyone in the military must remember what the chairman said. This is the truth. Don't underestimate this wasteland. Almost all of the missiles are completed here. Every time they are released for an experiment, they have never failed. Although it is called an experiment, it is actually to let the leaders in the General Assembly Hall and the military see the power of the new weapons. It is impossible for there to be a failure. After this experiment is completed, it will be introduced to the entire military in less than a month. The artillery will be the first to use it. Our regiment will be able to see it, but we will almost never use it. Yi Qian, who was following Company Commander Zhu, heard countless legends about this land. Every time she walked past a pothole, she couldn't help but wonder if the potholes were traces left behind by an experiment. The technical soldiers used radar technology to scan a large area. Every time a red dot flashed in the radar circle, it was immediately notified through wireless communication so that it could be cleaned up immediately. In order to ensure the safety of the entire experiment, the area within a radius of 100 kilometers had to be cleaned up. There were no suspicious points. In addition to the radar setup, there was also an infrared setup and an infrared tracking system. When all the radar and infrared spots were set up, the entire experimental space seemed to be covered by a giant net. No signal could be transmitted out, and no satellite could capture images of the sky above. Until the experiment was completed, this place was like a dot on Earth that had disappeared. It was truly isolated from the world. All points set up, all points set up. Activate the radar. Got it, got it. Attention all units. Attention all units. Radar equipment activated. Radar equipment activated. 3, 2, 1, activate. The radar equipment was activated, and the entire sky was monitored in all directions. Apart from those who had entered the monitoring range and were equipped with digital information labels and could be identified by the radar, no one else could enter the experimental site. Chapter 4966. In 3 days, as a Special Forces soldier, Yi Jian gained a lot of knowledge. Among them, he got to see all kinds of equipment and vehicles in our army, such as anti-chemical shower vehicles, anti-riot armored vehicles, riot control vehicles, anti-riot vehicles, water shooting vehicles for soldiers, lighting vehicles, comprehensive repair vehicles for soldiers, camping vehicles for soldiers, and so on. Each vehicle had its own function, and each special vehicle had its own use. It was a dazzling array of vehicles. Even Yi Qian, who had the best memory, would occasionally get confused and confuse the names of the special equipment and vehicles. Company Commander Zhu saw Yi Qian mumbling to himself a few times. However, every time he went closer to listen, Yi Qian would be very alert and shut up. No matter how much he asked, he wouldn't get an answer. What are you mumbling about? What are you mumbling about? Are you mumbling about whether you can get closer to observe the experiment? Ha ha ha, don't even think about it. You can't see it, you can't see it. We're mainly in charge of security. We're at least 50 kilometers away from the actual experimental site, so we can't see it. But I think we can hear some movement. Last time, during the cruise missile test and air-to-ground missile test, the precise strike point was not far from us. That sound came with a boom and shook the ground. You could smell the gunpowder from 20 kilometers away. Now that these missiles have been put into use, there's a new experiment in less than 3 years. Every time I go on a mission like this, I get excited for half a day. Instructor Yi, why do I feel like you're very calm? Is it because you're a Special Forces soldier and are better than me in all aspects? Is that why you're calmer than me? Company Commander Zhu didn't know if he was worried that Yi Qian would be nervous since it was his first time out, so he would chat with Yi Qian from time to time. Sometimes he would make fun of himself, and sometimes he would make fun of Yi Qian. He had a lot to say, and it made Yi Qian a little worried. Hearing this, Yi Qian sighed and said, "I'm not calm. I'm just memorizing the equipment that I've never seen before. Every time I remember something important, you would interrupt me. I've forgotten what equipment I've memorized just now." The corner of Company Commander Zhu's mouth twitched, and he let out a long sigh. To be honest, Instructor Yi, every time I'm nervous or excited, I can't help but talk a little more. Please bear with me. Bear with me until the end of the experiment. When I hear the news of the experiment's success, I will definitely keep quiet and not disturb you anymore. Yi Qian was even more worried. The experiment was scheduled to start at 3:00 p.m. tomorrow. It was only 10:00 a.m. now. There were still 29 hours before the start of the experiment. Wouldn't she still have to listen to Company Commander Zhu's nagging? Fortunately, Company Commander Zhu had to travel to various posts, so he wouldn't disturb Yi Qian too often. Therefore, Yi Qian endured it and came over. Seeing Company Commander Zhu, who hadn't had a good rest since yesterday, with dark circles under his eyes and cracked lips that were bleeding from the cold, Yi Qian couldn't bear to refuse him. At 5:00 p.m., Company Commander Zhu, who had disappeared for several hours, drove the warrior to Yi Qian's side. This time, he wasn't here to disturb Yi Qian. He was here to take Yi Qian to the experiment center. As for why Yi Qian was the only one going, Company Commander Zhu expressed that he didn't know either. "I was told to take you there by the higher-ups. As for why, I'll only know when we get there," Company Commander Zhu explained to Yi Qian. Yi Qian didn't ask any more questions. Since he didn't know, he would know when he got to the experiment center. Before getting into the car, Company Commander Zhu, who hadn't slept for more than 24 hours, yawned several times. He asked Yi Qian, who was about to get into the car, to pull back his right leg. He said to Company Commander Zhu, who didn't hide his fatigue, "Please rest for a while. I'll drive." Chapter 49-67. Sergeant Zhu, who was yawning and reaching into his pocket to get rid of his sleepiness, held the red pepper in his hand and asked Yi Jian, "Proficient?" Sergeant Zhu did not dare to let Yi Jian drive because they were not familiar with each other. But when he thought of Yi Qian's identity, Company Commander Zhu didn't think it would be a big deal. Yi Qian didn't know what kind of proficiency Company Commander Zhu was talking about. He thought for a while and nodded. "Why don't you take a look first? If you think my skills are good enough, you can let me drive?" "Yes." Company Commander Zhu, who was so tired that he needed to rely on chili to stay awake, put the chili back into his pocket. He patted his face that was so dry that it was almost frostbitten, and climbed onto the pedal with a shout. If she dared to say that she wanted to try, then she must have passed the test. Yi Jian, who had slept last night, sat in the driver's seat and opened the cruising route. As the car started with a boom, the slender female soldier drove the huge warrior's car all the way through the vast Gobi Desert. She got on the car quickly and drove handsomely. The steering wheel was so nimble in her hands that it seemed to come alive. She drove the warrior vehicle as easily as a toy car. It wasn't a hit, it was a great hit. Company Commander Zhu didn't ask any more questions. He said directly, 54 kilometers, 1 hour. You can drive a little slower and change the sentry post at 7 p.m. I'm going to sleep for a while. After that, she closed her eyes and fell asleep with peace of mind. In less than 3 minutes, Yi Qian heard Company Commander Zhu's snoring sound. Company Commander Zhu was too busy and tired to rest. Now that he finally had some time to sleep, he could only seize the time to rest. It was already quite cold at 5 p.m. in the Gobi Desert. Yi Qian, who was wearing desert camouflage winter clothing, drove the warrior vehicle through the patrol route to the center of the experiment. It was only now that Yi Qian's face showed excitement. This time, she was able to witness the success of the new experiment up close. The shift changed at 7 in the evening. Yi Qian slowed down the car a little and arrived at the checkpoint at 6:20. Company Commander Zhu woke up. His eyes were red as he checked his identity with Yi Qian. After confirming Company Commander Zhu's identity, the soldier immediately said, "I'm sorry, but you do not have permission to enter." Company Commander Zhu said, "I sent her here." The soldier who verified the identities of the two looked at Yi Qian with a sharp gaze. He scanned him from head to toe, as if to confirm something. Yi Qian instantly sensed that something was amiss. Her originally gentle aura was now filled with ruthlessness, and her entire temperament changed accordingly. As a Special Forces soldier who had killed on the battlefield, there was always a bloodthirsty aura when he unleashed his aura. Company Commander Zhu, whose heart skipped a beat, was shocked. Meanwhile, the soldier who was sizing up Yi Qian had a look of surprise in his eyes. "Yi Qian?" "Yes." Yi Qian replied. "Please wait a moment." In front of Yi Qian, the soldier contacted the relevant personnel inside. 06 calling 01, Yi Qian reporting, Yi Qian reporting. After that, he added, "Female soldier. There should be a reply from the wireless earpiece immediately." The soldier said to Yi Qian, "Drive 200 meters in, turn left, and stop. Get out of the car and walk in a straight line for 500 meters. You will see the—" Before he could finish speaking, the soldier raised his hand and pressed down on his earpiece. After nodding slightly, he said to Yi Qian, "I will take you there." After confirming his identity, the vehicle was scanned again. Only then did Yi Qian drive into the experiment zone again. Company Commander Zhu did not even watch Yi Qian go in. He had already left and returned to his post. Chapter 4968. At the research center, Company Commander Zhu, who was in charge of guarding the perimeter, did not have the authority to enter. Yi Qian, who was led by a soldier, had the authority to enter, and could only enter and not leave. Yi Qian was driving, and the soldier who led the way sat beside him. He did not hide his gaze as he sized up Yi Qian. When he saw how easily Yi Qian drove the warrior, he smiled and asked, "Were you driving the whole time?" For a moment, Yi Qian did not know who the other party was or why they had asked her to come over. She only nodded silently. Everything in front of her was unfamiliar. Yi Qian, who had always been steady, would not allow herself to be passive. The more she spoke, the more mistakes she would make. She had to remember that. When the soldier saw this, he could not help but laugh. "You're very alert. Relax. We asked you to come over because someone recommended you. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known of your existence." "Someone recommended her? Recommended her for what?" Although it was cold at 6:30 in the Gobi Desert, the stars in the sky were densely dotted. The Milky Way was clearly visible, like a silver dragon roaming the heavens. Yi Qian remained silent and did not let the soldier ask her anything. After walking for about 50 meters, she swept her gaze across a large black object covered by a desert-colored cloth not far from her right. In the night, it was like a dormant giant beast, waiting for an opportunity to awaken. Around it, sentries armed with live ammunition were stationed every 3 steps, guarding the entire large object. Yi Qian only glanced at it from the corner of her eye when she felt several cold, knife-like gazes sweep over her body. The sentries stationed every 3 steps were not ordinary sentries. Yi Qian's heart skipped a beat, and she immediately looked away, not daring to look again. As they passed by the large object, the soldier who led the way led Yi Qian for about 200 meters and arrived in front of a tent. 2 sentries were standing guard outside. When they saw someone approaching, one of them blocked the entrance of the tent with his arm. The other soldier with a gun shouted, "Who's there?" Yi Qian reporting, the soldier who led the soldier said. The soldier who was leading the way said. The soldier who blocked the entrance of the tent with his arm retracted his arm, saluted and let them pass. Yi Qian, who was waiting, could clearly feel several gazes sweeping over her. They were cold, forceful, and extremely tangible. With his back straight, Yi Qian responded to these gazes with the most indifferent attitude, until all the gazes disappeared. The soldier who led the way did not send Yi Qian inside. "Our captain is inside. He will arrange your position." Even now, Yi Qian still did not understand why he had asked her to come here. The sentries standing guard outside, the soldiers leading the way, and the sentries standing guard by the tent were obviously from the same unit as the sentries standing beside the black behemoth. Furthermore, they were not ordinary soldiers. It was heavily guarded, and the soldiers were all elite. What was she supposed to do? Yi Qian lifted the tent flap and walked in. Inside the tent, she saw 3 officers with higher ranks than her standing in front of a sand table and pointing at something. When they saw her enter, one of them, a young lieutenant colonel in his late 20s, smiled at Yi Qian and said with a smile, "Yi Qian, right? My surname is Lei, and I'm the captain of the sentries outside. Please wait for a moment. I'll look for you after I'm done talking to the 2 of them." He did not even let Yi Qian say "reporting in," before instructing Yi Qian to wait for a moment. The other 2 soldiers were both majors. They were also very young, in their early 20s. They smiled at Yi Qian politely and then lowered their heads to continue listening to their captain. Yi Qian stood to the side and quietly listened to their conversation. Chapter 49-69. Yi Qian, who was standing in the corner like an invisible person, actually wanted to go out, but the highest-ranking lieutenant colonel had spoken, so she could only think about it in her heart. She just stood there and waited. When they finished, they would naturally remember that she was still waiting there. The 3 people talking in the tent did not avoid Yi Qian, but seemed to deliberately let Yi Qian hear them, so that she would know what she had done. Captain Lei asked Yi Qian to wait at the side, and then he did not look at Yi Qian again. With a laser pointer in his hand, he scanned the newly built sand table and gave orders with a serious expression. "The fragments will spread. After the data collection, we will focus on collecting fragments from the west and north. The data collection personnel from the east and south bases will be done. They will be the first wave, and we will be the second wave. Radiation exists. All soldiers must wear the same anti-radiation clothing. Before departure, you must double-check whether the clothing is safe. Lu Pring, you are in charge of the west. Ren Yu, you are in charge of the north. Complete the fragment collection within 24 hours. Yes. Yes. The other 2 young captains immediately responded. The matter was almost over. Captain Lei, who had finished giving orders, turned to look at Yi Qian. Seeing the young female soldier standing upright like a sentinel on a mission, Captain Lei's face suddenly had a smile, and the other two young majors also laughed. This female soldier from the Army Special Forces was quite interesting. She was calm enough. Even when she was asked to stand, she gave off the aura of a sentinel. Sorry for the neglect. Let me introduce myself first. Captain Lei, who had finished his work, introduced the two young officers beside him. Lu Peng, Renziu. When Captain Lei introduced them, Yi Qian took the initiative to extend her hand. When the three shook hands, they could feel the thick cocoons in each other's hands. Releasing her hand, Lu Peng smiled and looked at Yi Qian. The cocoons are very thick. You must have practiced a lot. Yi Qian smiled. It's all normal training. Lu Peng raised her eyebrows slightly and did not speak again. The female soldier was very calm and did not speak much. At this stage, she was still very vigilant. The smile on Lei Bo's face deepened. His superiors told him that the female soldier who came here temporarily wouldn't talk too much and asked him not to take it to heart. Well, she was indeed a female soldier who didn't talk much. She was also very beautiful and breathtaking at first glance. Me Lei Xian. We are all paratroopers from an Air Force base. We are here to be responsible for the safety of the experiment project and the collection of fragments. When Captain Lei talked about the safety of the experimental project, he pointed to the sky, meaning that he was responsible for the safety of the sky. Airborne soldiers. Yi Qian was filled with deep veneration, and his eyes lit up. The airborne troops were born in the early 1960s and were reconstructed from the army. After nearly half a century of development, the airborne troops of our country had developed into the combination of artillery, engineers, scouts, anti-chemical soldiers, missile soldiers, and more than 10 other military branches, and dozens of specialized and closely coordinated modern military branches. And the three paratroopers standing in front of her were not as simple as Captain Lei's introduction. Yi Qian was a Special Forces soldier. Lei Xian and his two comrades knew in advance. And the identity of the three of them, although they were introduced as paratroopers, Yi Qian knew that the three of them were paratroopers through various previous observations. In his heart, he immediately identified the three of them as Special Scouts. Paratroopers, Special Scouts. This was the real identity of the three young officers in front of her. Chapter 4970. The Special Scouts of the paratroopers could quickly surpass any ground obstacles and carry out long-distance raids and all-around maneuvering at the fastest speed. The Special Forces had special missions and were especially good at fighting. The Special Scouts of the paratroopers were the fighter jets of this Special Forces. Captain Xia once told her that the Special Forces of the Snowfield Brigade could only master the parachute skills of 3 types of aircraft and 4 types of terrain at most. The paratroopers, from the captain to the soldiers, had 8 types of parachute skills, including 5 types of aircraft and 9 types of terrain, opening double parachutes and being fully armed. The Special Scouts of the paratroopers were the elites of the paratroopers. They could complete the airborne operations of islands, Gobi, plateaus, water nets, mountains, jungles, and at night under complicated terrain and meteorological conditions. At that time, she heard a lot of exclamations. She didn't know there was such a powerful team. When she was exclaiming again and again, Captain Xia even looked up and knocked her head. He was so angry at her ignorance that he laughed. Do you think the Air Force doesn't have any other special forces except for our army? The Tri-Amphibious Special Forces were the last to be formed. The Special Scouts of the paratroopers were formed earlier than our Snowfield Brigade. You, in addition to knowing more about the Army and Navy, you should also know more about the Air Force of our country. After arriving at school, she went to the library to read countless books about the Air Force. Among them, she had a detailed understanding of the Special Scouts of the paratroopers. She yearned for such a special force that could descend from the sky and complete operations without anyone noticing. She thought that if she could see it one day, it would be a wonderful thing in her life. She didn't expect to see it today. It wasn't just one or two paratroopers, but a group of paratroopers. When Yi Qian reached out, her eyes were bright, so much so that Captain Lei couldn't help but recall if he had said anything else just now. How could this female soldier, who had always been calm and composed, suddenly have a bright color in her eyes? He seriously recalled and confirmed that he didn't say anything else, and the female soldier's eyes suddenly had a bright color. Captain Lei suddenly laughed. The Army's special forces were worthy of their reputation. They were really amazing. When he heard that they were paratroopers, this female comrade had probably already guessed what kind of paratroopers they were. Paratroopers was just a general term, and there were several types of paratroopers. He just didn't know which type this female comrade was guessing they belonged to. Missile soldiers in the airborne troops? Air Force? Or artillery? Major Lu Peng and Major Rin Ziyu shook hands with Yi Qian one after another. Lu Peng smiled and said, "Captain, we'll head out first. You guys can continue chatting." Captain Lei nodded. "Okay, you guys go ahead. I'll talk to the female comrade from the army." Major Lu Peng and Major Rin Yu nodded slightly. Before they left, they even gave Yi Qian a friendly smile before they strode away. "Sorry, there is no place to sit. Please stand and talk." Captain Lei, who had been smiling, pointed to the sand table. "Come, let's talk next to the sand table." Before he reached the sand table, Captain Lei suddenly asked with a smile, "Did you just know who we are?" Hearing this, Yi Qian pursed his lips and smiled. "It's okay. It's all guessing. I don't know if it's right or not." Being modest, Yi Qian was very sure of the other party's identity, but he still didn't tell the truth. He couldn't help it. He was not used to showing his cards at the beginning. Chapter 49-71. Captain Lei couldn't help but laugh again. "Ha ha ha, how much have you guessed?" Captain Lei's appearance was not outstanding and could even be called ordinary. He belonged to the category that was completely inconspicuous in a crowd, but his eyes were particularly sharp and resilient. Standing in front of him, it was as if you were not looking at a person, but a big tree, a towering tree. If you could rest under a big tree, it would shelter you from the wind and rain. It would make you feel very safe the moment you approached. Yi Qian thought about it and answered Captain Lei quite seriously. "I just came from outside and just glanced at the covered behemoth out of the corner of my eye. I was discovered in less than a second. It was also the first time I was discovered when I looked around. At that time, I felt that the soldiers guarding around were not simple. The main reason for thinking so is that you yourself are not simple, right?" Captain Lei, who had been smiling, showed his neat white teeth and looked very amiable, if his eyes were not so sharp. In the face of the questioning, Yi Qian smiled calmly and said, "To be able to directly guard the experimental center, I think everyone knows that Captain Lei and you are not simple. Then can you guess who we are?" Yi Qian looked up, his dark eyes shining. "The special scouts of the paratroopers." Without any hesitation, he said it in a very affirmative tone. Captain Lei, who was holding the laser pointer and pressing it occasionally, frowned without leaving a trace. He looked at Yi Qian with a hint of darkness in the depths of his eyes. His guess was so accurate, and his tone was sure as if he already knew. He was also sure that before this female soldier from the Army Special Forces did not know that the soldiers guarding here were paratroopers. They did not come here by car, but directly by air. They were active here as early as a week ago. The technical soldiers who came and went around, and even the researchers in charge of the experiment, did not see that they were special scouts of the paratroopers. No one noticed, and this female soldier in front of him did not even take 15 minutes to see it. Her observation skills were quite terrifying. "How did you directly think that we were special scouts? What aspects did you use to be so sure? Were we exposed in some places?" Captain Lei asked quite seriously. After asking, he could correct it. Yi Qian shook his head. No, I just relied on my intuition. After a slight pause, he continued, I am rarely caught directly. As a Special Forces soldier, when I was caught on the spot, I naturally thought that the identity of the other party must be quite complicated. When I shook hands with you just now, I found that Captain Lei and your comrades had thick gun calluses in their hands. Major Lu Peng asked me casually, You've practiced it a lot. According to me, ordinary paratroopers training in a day with guns is less than parachuting training. In addition to the thick calluses in your hands, there are thick calluses between your thumbs and index fingers. I think it's because of the parachutes, that. In other words, they hadn't been exposed. She just happened to know about it, and because she was also a Special Forces soldier, she was sure of their true identity. Her meticulous thinking was really amazing, but at the same time she felt a chill down her spine. Captain Lei's smile faded and he sighed. It seems that we have to restrain ourselves. We can't say too much. If we say too much, I'm afraid you can even guess where we are from. Chapter 49-72. What Captain Lei said was not an exaggeration. The Special Forces from the Snowfield Brigade were the best at getting the biggest secrets from the subtleties. The more he said, the more they analyzed and removed the impurities, leaving behind the essence of what they wanted to know. Although Yi Qian had not officially joined the Snowfield Brigade and had not received the comprehensive professional training of the Snowfield Brigade, she had always been in contact with elite Special Forces and often trained with them. Although there was no systematic training, with Yi Qian's ability to understand, the more Captain Lei said, the more information she would get. Realizing the keenness of the female soldier from the Army Special Forces, Captain Lei really did not dare to say too much. The Special Forces in the airborne troops were originally a hidden force. Even if they were both soldiers, he could not let her know too much. Then, Captain Lei immediately changed the topic. Let's get back to business. It's getting late. Finish your business early and you can rest early. Although Yi Qian was very interested in the Special Forces in the airborne troops, seeing that Captain Lei directly avoided the topic and did not want her to know too much, Yi Qian, who had always been tactful, naturally did not pursue the matter. Hearing this, she smiled and nodded. Okay, Captain Lei, please go ahead. Finish your business early, then rest. It meant that there was still something to do after finishing. We are short of a sharpshooter here. The higher-ups recommend that you temporarily replace the shooting position tomorrow. Not on land, but helicopter shooting. I heard that you have completed helicopter shooting at sea before, and your results were quite good, right? Completing helicopter shooting at sea was a compulsory subject when Yi Qian joined the Storm Commandos 2 years ago and trained under the Devil King Li Jinyan. Yi Qian's eyes narrowed slightly. He nodded. Yes, 2 years ago. In addition to Major General Yang and Captain Xia, Commander-in-Chief Xia also knew about this training. The higher-ups told Captain Lei. Did the higher-ups refer to Major General Yang? Was Major General Yang also in the experimental center? Yi Qian, who remained calm and collected, had already thought about it several times in his mind. His expression was solemn and cold as he quietly waited for Captain Lei to continue speaking. Tomorrow's experiment will focus on air combat missiles. In addition to protecting the central area of the experiment, we also have a heavy responsibility. The moment the experiment is completed, we need to eliminate a small target immediately. For this operation, we need a sharpshooter to destroy the ground radar immediately. Tomorrow, you'll be the sharpshooter. You'll also play a crucial role in whether we can successfully complete the next mission. Yi Qian had thought that she would at most be tasked with sentry duty or patrolling. Who would have thought that she would be given such a heavy responsibility the moment she arrived? He was momentarily stunned. Where's the original sharpshooter? She couldn't help but ask. Captain Lei thought for a moment and even deliberated in his heart before answering, My team has a total of 3 sharpshooters. 2 are on the scene and 1 is on a mission, so he can't make it back in time. Originally, we only needed 2 sharpshooters, but the Air Force Command increased the requirement at the last minute, so we are now short of 1 sharpshooter. This also exposed a serious problem in my team. When we go back, we have to review it carefully to put an end to the problem of temporary shortage of personnel for similar temporary missions. Temporary shortage of personnel was a very serious problem. From it could be seen whether the comprehensive ability of a troop of soldiers was comprehensive. Captain Lay's current shortage of personnel also showed that there was a shortage of talent and that the comprehensive ability of the soldiers needed to be strengthened. Of course, there was a third point. Captain Lay deliberately said this. Chapter 49-73. Yi Qian was more inclined to the third possibility. Captain Lay was afraid that she knew too much, so he deliberately led her like this. As for her heart, she silently added points to Xia Jinyuan. The Snowfield Brigade's special forces had comprehensive development and were proficient in everything. The assaulter could sometimes be used as a sniper, and the sniper could be used as an assaulter. The Z7 position could be temporarily replaced by AT6 or V8. Even if there was a temporary task, it could be quickly arranged in place, and one person could play several roles. Captain Lay, the position you arranged is too important. I'm afraid I can't do it. Yi Qian didn't dare to immediately nod and say yes. She had trained to accurately complete the sea shooting on a helicopter, and since that training, she had never had similar training again. She was more or less a little apprehensive. Captain Lay smiled. That's why we asked you to come in advance. We also want you to prepare in advance for tomorrow's mission. Prepare in advance? How to prepare? In doubt, Yi Qian saw Captain Lay pick up the wireless walkie-talkie at his waist, adjust the channel, and put it in the corner of his mouth to call. 01 to 00, please answer if you hear, please answer if you hear. 00 received, 00 received, ready to take off at any time, ready to take off at any time. The soldier's calm voice came from the walkie-talkie. Yi Qian's eyes widened, and she looked at Captain Lay in surprise. You plan to take off tonight. Let me get the feeling and try it first? Captain Lay, it's true that I've had helicopter shooting training, but I'm sorry to tell you that I've never had helicopter training at night, let alone shooting at night. He was very cautious. He didn't take it all on himself, and he didn't care about letting him know his shortcomings. Captain Lay laughed and became more interested. That's good. Although you've never trained before, isn't tonight a good opportunity for you? Worried that Yi Qian would insist on refusing because of her incompetence, Captain Lay threw out a very tempting bait. When the time comes, we'll let you watch us complete the airborne. If you want to learn more about airborne techniques, we can also teach you. So, do you agree? Do you want to try? The bait thrown out was too tempting. So tempting that Yi Qian really didn't have the slightest position to insist on refusing. Of course, she wanted to. It wasn't an ordinary thought. Yi Qian nodded honestly. I really want to, but I'm more worried that I won't be able to do it. He sighed again. Captain Lay, you're breaking the rules. You know what I want to know the most, but you're throwing out bait to lure me in. And even though I knew it was a hook, I still obediently took it. Ha ha ha, it's not bait, it's an opportunity, and you're just seizing it. Let's go and change our equipment. Captain Lay, who was walking with his legs raised, laughed and raised his hand. His hand was stretched out in the air, and then he suddenly retracted it. Then he patted his head awkwardly. Sorry, it's just a habit. Out of habit, he wanted to put his arm around his comrade's shoulder. However, when his hand was halfway in the air, he suddenly remembered that the warrior in front of him was a female. As a male soldier, if he rashly put his arm around a female soldier's shoulder, cough 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 cough, it would be a bad influence, a bad influence. He would be beaten up by the female soldiers as a hooligan. With the strength of a special forces soldier, Even if she was a female soldier, oh no, the reason why a female soldier could become a Special Forces soldier, she might be even stronger than a male soldier. It probably wouldn't be a normal beating, but a punch and a kick. Yi Qian, on the other hand, didn't feel much awkwardness. In the Snowfield Brigade, she was often treated as a brother by her comrades, so she didn't feel awkward. It was a normal interaction. Chapter 49-74. It was a very normal contact. Who knew that the team members who treated Yi Qian as a brother were all given extra training by the narrow-minded Colonel Xia. Walking out of the tent, Captain Lei raised his hand and made a grabbing motion. Not bad. Although the temperature is a bit low and there is no wind, it is suitable for flying at night. Airborne landing during the day was already dangerous, let alone at night. There was no way to see the terrain, ground objects, and ground targets clearly in the first place. In order to ensure the safety of the airborne troops, there would be weather protection before airborne landing to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages to prevent and reduce the danger of dangerous weather to the airborne troops. For example, Captain Lei directly asked Yi Qian to watch them complete the airborne landing. Yi Qian was very worried that the weather would be harmful to them. Therefore, after Captain Lei finished speaking, she said, "Airborne landing at night is very dangerous. The wind doesn't seem to be strong now, but completing the airborne landing requires a forecast of wind, clouds, visibility, air pressure, temperature, and so on. You just asked me to watch you guys do the airborne landing, but forget it. I am already very satisfied to be able to get close to the elite of the airborne troop. No, I will do as I say. Since I said it, how can I go back on my words? Especially since you are so interested in our airborne troop. Comrade Yi Qian, since you are so interested, I am very suspicious that you have the intention to transfer to another branch. Do I? If you do, you can consider it carefully. I have seen your training results, they are quite excellent. In the airborne troops, with your potential to become an excellent airborne soldier, I think you can definitely do it within a year." It was true that she thought Yi Qian was excellent, but asking Yi Qian to consider transferring to another branch was just a casual topic to relax Yi Qian. Yi Qian, who had always been in a good mood, laughed. "The army is also very good. Captain Lei, you can also consider it. If Captain Lei transfers to another branch, you will definitely be the king of soldiers." He was very calm and could even make fun of him. The smile on his face deepened. Captain Lei looked deeply at the female soldiers walking with him and chatted casually. "Are there many female soldiers in your team? Female Special Forces soldiers in our army are rare. I've been in the army for 7 years and this is the first time I've met a female Special Forces soldier. There were indeed very few female Special Forces in our military, but there were female Special Forces in every military region. However, there were very few female Special Forces who were well-rounded like Yi Qian." Yi Qian didn't dare to say too much. Captain Lei was worried that the more he said, the more she would know. She had the same worry. After all, the Snowfield Brigade was a unit that didn't even exist in the system. They couldn't find their designation or their existence. Yes, there are quite a lot of female soldiers in our team. Your side has high requirements, so there won't be many female Special Forces soldiers. You shouldn't be thinking about recruiting female soldiers into the team, right? We didn't consider it a few years ago, but with the changes of time, some missions are more suitable for female soldiers than male soldiers. In the past 2 years, we have also considered recruiting female soldiers and are in the process of implementing it. But as you said, the requirements are high, so we won't recruit too many female soldiers because it's too difficult to recruit." When it came to recruiting female soldiers, Captain Lei's face became a little dignified. This wasn't just a similar problem faced by Captain Lei, the entire army faced a similar problem. As female soldiers dominated more and more important positions, the scarcity of female soldiers became a problem. It was believed that in the near future, the number of female soldiers in the army would be increased. It wouldn't be like now where there were only 1 or 2 places. This was an inevitable development. Chapter 49-75. The two didn't talk much about the recruitment of female soldiers and didn't mention it again. If they could think of it, the higher-ups could naturally think of it too. So, the most important thing now was to get down to business. The helicopter was on standby. Captain Lei took Yi Qian to the equipment room to get a small-size equipment. This small-size equipment is suitable for you to wear. The gun is on the machine. You can check it when it's on. Yi Qian's eyes flashed as she took the ventilation suit. Small-size equipment. Even the equipment that fits her was prepared in advance? They calculated that the sharpshooter in the team would have something to do at the last minute, so they prepared it in advance? Yi Qian's eyes flashed slightly. The sharpshooter had something to do at the last minute, and the higher-ups increased the price at the last minute. It was all fake. Seeing that she had the intention to retreat, Captain Lei immediately threw out the bait and said that he could teach her some airborne technique. He was clearly waiting for her. Captain Lei didn't notice the smile on Yi Qian's face. He handed the flight helmet to Yi Qian and asked jokingly, "Do you know how to wear it? Do you need a demonstration?" Yi Qian was familiar with the flight equipment set in the Storm Commandos before, so naturally, there was no need for a demonstration. Moreover, the suit in her hand was not for pilots, so there was no need for a demonstration. But she weighed the small-size ventilation suit in her hand and picked it up slightly. Captain Lei is a genius. He knew that the sharpshooter in your crew would have something to do at the last minute and wouldn't come over, so he even prepared the small-size equipment in advance. What a genius! She knew it. Why would they call her an instructor who came to train the female soldiers at the last minute, and why would they suddenly transfer her to the center of the experiment to temporarily replace an important position? She always felt that there was a problem, but she couldn't figure out what it was. Now she understood. To ensure the completion of the experiment, it was true that they needed to completely clear the site. Because of the shortage of people, they asked her, an instructor who would only stay in the Pioneer Battalion for half a day, to replace the position. The reason why they asked her to come was for the upcoming aerial shooting mission. Captain Lei said that the sharpshooter couldn't come because of something, but it was true that they were carrying out a mission, and the mission included her. It was also a mission that they needed to complete. Why did it have to be her? Why didn't he just tell her directly? Why did he have to let her guess? What other arrangements did the military have for her? Deep in thought, Yi Qian's eyes darkened. A cold light flickered in the deepest part of his eyes. His expression was so cold that Captain Lei had a mocking smile on his face. No, we're all used to being prepared. We're always prepared in advance in case of emergencies. The female special forces that the army had handpicked were really not easy to fool. He hadn't even seen how powerful he was, but he had already experienced his mental strength. His back was drenched in sweat. I really didn't say anything, not even a word of nonsense, but she actually saw through it, and it wasn't a last-minute plan. Yi Qian took the helmet and laughed. Her eyes were so sharp that Captain Lei felt a headache coming on. He wanted to tell her directly that he didn't know anything either. Just like her, he did not know why she had to come and arrange for night descent. Night landings were common occurrences in their unit, and there was nothing rare about it. However, they were bringing along an army unit, and letting her see their night landings. It wasn't the chief, so why did she have to see it? The female soldier in front of him didn't understand, and neither did he, the captain who received the mission at the last minute. Chapter 49-76. The only thing he knew was that the higher-ups had informed the team that there would be a female Special Forces soldier from the army that he needed to observe for 2 days. It would be best to arrange a position for her in the mission they were carrying out. They also told him that the female Special Forces soldier was a sniper and had been trained in sea and air sniping. They asked him to arrange her position based on this. The most important thing was not to directly tell her that this was an arrangement from the higher-ups and that it was all temporary. The person who passed the message was none other than their division commander. Captain Lei received such a strange order and discussed it with Deputy Captain Lu Peng and Ren Ziyu for a long time. In the end, they arranged the comrades in the main shooting position to other positions and then arranged the female soldier to the main shooting position. In the face of Yi Qian's doubts, Captain Lei, who had a headache, chose to temporarily avoid it. If you don't understand something, finish the business first. Hurry up and change your equipment. The helicopter is on standby, just waiting for you. Yi Qian, who already had the equipment in hand, had no chance to refuse. She could only nod and hurry up to change her equipment. She changed her equipment in the tent. Captain Lei, who went out, said to his comrades through the public channel that had not been closed, "The female soldier from the army is sharp enough. I, a captain, was asked by her until my back was sweating. Don't ask too much when you see her later, lest she guesses more." A voice quickly came from the public channel. What did she guess? She guessed that we were not on a temporary mission at all. She guessed that she was not on a temporary transfer, but that she was already on the mission. Captain Lei sighed. I clearly didn't say anything. I only gave her a small-size ventilation suit. Captain, you mean that we were exposed because of a small-size ventilation suit? Another airborne Special Forces scout asked. Well, it was the equipment that was exposed. If there was a cigarette, Captain Lei, who was full of sorrow, wanted to light one for himself and take a few puffs. It was obviously prepared for her. She guessed it at a glance. So what if she guessed it? She won't think we have ulterior motives. Captain, you might as well tell her that we were forced to do it. If it weren't for the fact that she was powerful, we might not have cooperated. What else is there for her to guess? The Special Forces scout spoke a bit harshly. There was no other way. They had to cooperate with a Special Forces soldier from the army. So what if she was a female soldier? Could she waste resources just because she was a female soldier? She even broke their previous plan and took the position that originally belonged to their comrade. She even guessed that they had ulterior motives. They also doubted whether she had the ability to complete an aerial shot. Although Captain Lei had some complaints about Yi Jian's arrival, he also deliberately left her hanging for a while. The complaints in his heart faded with the female soldier's indifference. Seeing that his comrades still had some opinions, Captain Lei said, "It's just 2 days, not a long time. If you have any opinions, keep them to yourself. Don't say it in front of the female soldier. She doesn't know anything. We can't take it out on her, let alone embarrass her. Do you hear me? Don't make things difficult, Captain." Yes, Captain Yi Qian. Captain to Captain. Captain Lei heard the sound of footsteps coming out of the tent. He quickly turned his back, stared at the tent door, and continued to speak in a low voice. Okay, we will obey the arrangement from above. Later, you have to collect the data on her side seriously. The above is still waiting for us to submit her data. Chapter 4977. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. I'll definitely collect her data seriously. It's absolutely accurate. Little head, calm down. Big head didn't say anything. Why are you sticking up for him? Captain Lei even raised his voice a little, but quickly suppressed it. Don't make Big Head, who originally accepted the arrangement, feel uncomfortable. Female soldier, come over. Don't pull a long face. People can tell at a glance. Female soldiers from the Army Special Forces are not embroidered pillows. You brat, shut your mouth. Less bullshit, do you hear me? After about a few seconds of silence, a reluctant answer came from inside. Yes. The tent curtain was lifted. The female soldier who had changed into her flying equipment strode in with a flying helmet in one hand. Light poured out from the corner of the raised curtain, illuminating the female soldier who came out against the light. She was tall and straight, looking particularly handsome. "It's just cough." Captain Lay quickly withdrew his gaze. The raised curtain was quickly lowered. The valiant female soldier had integrated into the darkness. Captain Lay, who had cut off the communication, raised his night watch and greeted her with a smile. "Not bad. 2 minutes to change equipment. Very fast." It was not a complicated flight suit. After all, they were not going to fly a fighter. Captain Lay gave Yi Qian a ventilation suit, so the change was naturally fast. As for Captain Lay, he did not change his clothes at all. They were going to land at night and aim at the target to complete the shooting. They were not going to fly a fighter to complete high-altitude combat. Air Force training clothes were enough. Yi Qian approached with the desert camouflage coat she had worn before. "It's not complicated. 2 minutes is enough." It was just that the clothes were a little tight, outlining all the curves of her body, which made her a little unaccustomed. The ventilation suit was a slim fit. It was very tight on the upper and lower body. It could introduce air of suitable temperature and evenly distribute it to the human body. When the temperature was high, it could allow the surface of the body to obtain air convection, allowing sweat to evaporate in time, thus maintaining the thermal balance of the human body. Wearing it in a low-temperature environment could also allow the surface of the body to obtain hot air of suitable temperature to enhance the cold resistance. Later, Yi Qian needed to complete the shooting of the target on the ground with the cabin open. The Gobi temperature was low and the wind was cold. Only wearing a ventilation suit was the most suitable. Captain Lay glanced at it and quickly retracted his gaze. Because the ventilation suit showed too much of her figure, he didn't dare to look too much. He could tell that Yi Qian was not used to wearing a ventilation suit. He pointed at the coat in her arms and said, "The helicopter is in front. It'll take a few more minutes. You can put on your coat first." Yi Qian heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly put it on. Then he exhaled softly. She had also worn a tight-fitting diving suit during the training of the Storm Commandos, but at that time she was focused on fighting with her brother and did not think about it. However, the moment she put on the tight-fitting diving suit and pulled up the zipper, she felt a sudden pressure on her chest. She felt a little embarrassed after that. After putting on the coat, Yi Qian instantly felt natural and followed Captain Lay to the helicopter. Along the way, Captain Lay really did not dare to say anything else. He only talked about topics that interested Yi Qian. Yi Qian listened with great interest and did not know how far she had walked. Later, Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan mentioned this matter. Xia Jinyuan held Yi Qian's face tightly with both hands and said very seriously, "I'm really worried that if you meet a more powerful unit in the future, you'll be so stupid that you'll just go with them. Remember, you're a Special Forces soldier of the Snowfield Brigade. You can't be casually taken away by other units." Chapter 49-78. After thinking about it, Yi Qian also felt that her vigilance was a little low at the time. She didn't pay attention to how far they walked. The helicopter was parked in a very hidden location. If one didn't look closely, they would think it was a barren mountain. The rumbling of the propellers pulled Yi Qian back from Captain Lay's wonderful topic. Captain Lay also stopped the topic at the right time and took Yi Qian to the helicopter that was ready to take off. This was a double-headed, single-rotor reconnaissance helicopter with an attack capability. Paratroopers with parachute bags stood on both sides of the hatch. When Yi Qian saw the two of them, her serious eyes were instantly filled with respect. Captain Lay didn't give any instructions. She trotted over against the strong wind caused by the propellers and saluted the two paratroopers. The two paratroopers were stunned. One of the paratroopers whispered, "Why are you so serious?" "No matter how serious I am, I won't cheat on the data." The voice suddenly came from the Xiao Tu, that Captain Lei nodded. Xiao Tu and De Tu were twin brothers. The two brothers joined the army together, entered the airborne unit together, and became special scouts together. They had a very good relationship. Yi Qian's arrival took the shooting position that originally belonged to the older brother, De Tu. As the younger brother, Xiao Tu was a little unhappy, so his words were inevitably a little harsh. Fortunately, Yi Qian couldn't see the expressions on their faces at night. She couldn't hear Xiao Tu muttering in the sound of the propellers. Captain Lei patted her on the shoulder and pointed inside the cabin, motioning Yi Qian to enter the cabin. The sound was too loud, so there was no way to communicate. When she opened her mouth, she would swallow a mouthful of cold wind mixed with sand and dust. If she wasn't careful, she would choke and cough. The cabin door closed and the helicopter took off smoothly. Captain Lei introduced Yi Qian to his comrades on the plane, including the captain, a total of 4 people, plus Yi Qian and Captain Lei, a total of 6 people. When they saw Yi Qian, a trace of suspicion flashed in their eyes. Such a beautiful female soldier, and her skin was tender. They had seen her information before. Was it fake? How could he still have tender skin after high-intensity training every day? It had to be said that Yi Qian's untanned, fair skin was very deceptive. Anyone who had not seen her strength would have doubts about her ability. After seeing him, he had a lingering fear in his heart. Only then did he realize that one could not judge a book by its cover. The captain was responsible for taking off and landing the helicopter. Yi Qian was responsible for destroying the ground targets immediately. Xiao Tu and another soldier were responsible for providing cover immediately after landing. Captain Lei was the last to land and was responsible for bringing up the rear. With the addition of Yi Qian, she was also responsible for bringing up the rear after landing. The 6 Special Forces scouts formed a combat team. They had a clear division of labor and could take turns to fight in the battle to complete the deep battle. Do you see the red flashing target on the ground? The helicopter will descend to 500 meters and complete one shot. Descend to 400 meters and complete one shot. Descend to 300 meters and complete one shot. You have a total of 3 chances to destroy the target. If you can't finish shooting after 3 times, you'll fail. Yi Qian, who had already set up his sniper rifle, nodded and made an okay gesture. She was still confident in her ability to snipe the target. Xiao Tu saw Yi Qian's relaxed response and could not help but remind her, if you fail, it doesn't mean that you've failed alone. It means that our entire operation has failed. If it's a real battlefield, your failure is likely to cause all of your comrades to die without a burial ground. He did not mean to scare Yi Qian. If one of the airborne Special Forces scouts failed, it was indeed possible that all of their comrades would be sacrificed. Airborne operations were special operations. They often learned how to fight in the deep battle. They were surrounded by enemies, and they were in the middle of the enemy's encirclement. Once exposed, they would be surrounded by enemies. How could Yi Qian not see the doubt in the other's eyes, as well as the hint of opinion in his tone? She, who usually did not like to talk much, pursed her lips and responded with silence. Chapter 49-79. Xiao Tu's understanding of Yi Qian came only from the information given to him by the military. Moreover, it was not detailed information. He only told them that Yi Qian had undergone similar training, so there was no need to worry too much and that they could bring her with them. As for the other information about Yi Qian, such as what missions she had carried out, it was naturally impossible to tell them everything. Therefore, it was normal for Xiao Tu to question whether Yi Qian could successfully complete the mission. But Yi Qian also heard another layer of meaning from Xiao Tu's questioning. It was something that had been settled for thousands of years and could not be changed in a short period of time. From the standpoint of a man, he was questioning a girl's ability. It could be called discrimination. As a female soldier, Yi Qian would inevitably have doubts about her ability as long as she met a stranger in an important situation. Only when the results were out would the people who questioned her be completely accepted. Sometimes, when faced with this kind of discrimination from men as a female soldier, Yi Qian would have emotions and rebel. The more they discriminated against her, the more she wanted to complete the mission beautifully. The more she wanted to make the person who discriminated against her unable to show his face. In her previous life, she was suppressed by Yi Zhifan in every aspect. She did not borrow anyone's strength and only relied on her own weak strength to fight a battle of wits and courage against Yi Zhifan, who had status and status. In the end, she escaped from Yi Ying's persecution again and again. She relied on her rebellious nature to overcome one obstacle after another. In the end, she did not think that she would be defeated so early. Because she was unwilling, she called Yi Ying before she died. Even if she was about to die, she wanted to leave a shadow in Yi Ying's heart. In her previous life, she was so lowly and rebellious. In this life, she already had a lot of things and was full of confidence. It was even more impossible for others to look down on her. In one's life, there were times when one lived for the sake of fighting for one's pride. Now, facing Xiao Tu's questioning, Yi Qian, who knew that it was useless for her to say more, used silence to answer. Her silent answer made Xiao Tu have no reason to continue speaking. She would make Xiao Tu shut up and let him know that female soldiers could also be better than male soldiers. Captain Lei glared at Xiao Tu in the dark, making Xiao Tu purse his lips tightly and turn his head away. Female soldier. He waited. The atmosphere in the helicopter was a little heavy, and no one said a word. Yi Qian could tell that Xiao Tu was discriminating against female soldiers, but Captain Lei and the other male soldiers did not notice it. They still thought that Xiao Tu was defending his brother Big Head. Captain Lei did not speak, and the other airborne Special Forces scouts were even less likely to open their mouths to criticize Xiao Tu. That was their comrade, and of course they would side with their comrade. The most important position that originally belonged to their comrade in arms had been taken by an army soldier. Little Head had opinions in his heart, and so did they. The heavy atmosphere was broken as the pilot got closer and closer to the target. Through the in-flight communication equipment, the pilot told everyone that they were 800 meters away from the target. Captain Lei took a deep breath and gestured to Xiao Tu, who was sitting by the cabin door, to open the door. The interior warning light next to the cabin door flashed from green to yellow, and the closed cabin door slowly opened. The high-altitude cold air poured into the cabin, blowing away the heaviness, but also brought the coldness that made the muscles on their faces instantly cold to the point of pain. Yi Qian, who had been familiar with the sniper rifle, quickly took off her thick camouflage uniform when Captain Lei gestured to Xiao Tu to open the door. The door opened, and she had repositioned the sniper rifle. Chapter 4980. The sniper rifle was the Type 97 that Yi Qian was familiar with. Although he used a foreign sniper rifle every time he went abroad to ensure his identity was not exposed, the Type 97 was Yi Qian's most commonly used sniper rifle. For a sniper, even if the model of the sniper rifle was the same, the soul of each gun was different. When getting a sniper rifle that you had never used before, the most important thing was to familiarize yourself with it. Only by familiarizing yourself with it could you achieve unity with the gun. Captain Lei, who had been staring at the hatch until it was completely open, turned his head, intending to signal that Yi Qian could now approach the hatch. However, he was worried that Yi Qian would be afraid of the high altitude, so he was thinking about how to comfort Yi Qian so that she could relax and complete the target shooting better. Who knew that when he turned his head, no, his neck had not completely turned, just moved a little, he saw that the female soldier Yi Qian, who was originally sitting near the hatch, had already moved to the edge of the hatch. The tip of her right shoe was even out of the hatch. Sitting with Yi Qian was a paratrooper in the assault position. He looked at Yi Qian and quietly gave his captain a look. Captain Lei received his comrade's look and his eyes flashed slightly. He sighed deeply in his heart. Little head, this guy, he had offended someone. Yi Qian, who had a gun in his heart, sat at the edge of the hatch. When he looked down, he could see the pitch-black ground like a bottomless abyss. Once he fell, he would be smashed to pieces. Yi Qian, who used his arm as a fixed point, looked calm. It was as if what was below was not high altitude, but solid ground. There was no fear. Most of the long gun barrel was exposed outside the cabin. With the pilot's instructions and the helicopter's continuous descent, Yi Qian, who looked down from high altitude, saw the flashing red target. The effective range of the Type 97 sniper rifle was 600 meters. The pilot reported the helicopter's descent height of 750 meters. Yi Qian, who was in an aiming position, suddenly looked up and asked Captain Lei through the earpiece, "Descending 500 meters is the first shot. Can I shoot in advance?" "Shoot in advance?" Captain Lei was a little surprised. "You can, but Sniper 97 has an effective range of 600 meters. Shooting from 500 meters is already difficult, and you still want to shoot in advance?" Captain Lei did not have the chance to say the second half of his sentence, because when the pilot indicated in his headset that they were descending to 600 meters, Yi Qian, who had confirmed that he could shoot in advance, immediately fired the first shot. He was ruthless and did not speak much. He spoke with his strength. It was not easy to shoot from 600 feet in the air. It could even be said that it was impossible. Moreover, the wind was blowing at a high speed, and the pilot had not adjusted the fuselage properly to allow Yi Qian to shoot accurately according to the direction of the wind. In other words, while the pilot was still waiting for the sniper to tell him to adjust his direction, the ruthless and taciturn Yi Qian had already fired the first shot. The sound of the propellers almost drowned out all the gunshot. In addition, all the paratroopers on the plane were wearing headset. When Yi Qian fired the first shot, they did not notice it at all. When the bullet hit the first target and triggered the smoke device, the billowing smoke exploded like rolling dark clouds and covered the red flashing target. Only then did all the paratroopers who were waiting for Yi Qian to shoot realize that this female soldier from a special force in the army had already fired the first shot. It hit the target at an altitude of 600 meters. "Captain, look at the ground." Xiao Tu, who had been staring at the ground, shouted. Before he could finish his sentence, Captain Lei immediately turned his head to look at the ground. Sitting opposite Yi Qian, he did not see Yi Qian fire the first shot. All he saw was thick smoke rolling up from the high altitude. Chapter 49-81. She fired. When did she fire? Why didn't he notice it at all? Captain Lei was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out. She tried her best to clear her muddled mind and recall when Yi Qian had fired the gun. That's right. After she asked herself if she could do it, she immediately fired the gun after receiving a reply. She didn't adjust her posture or aim. He didn't even see her estimate of the wind speed, direction, temperature, and humidity that affected the sniper sprite's preparation. He was sitting right across from her, his line of sight never leaving her, but he didn't notice her firing. Was he blind for a moment at that time? Otherwise, how could he not notice it? Captain Lei looked at Yi Qian in shock and opened his mouth. He felt that his so-called reminder was all bullshit. This Army Special Forces soldier didn't need it at all. As for what the squad leader said before, he was asking for humiliation, and his face at this moment was burning with pain. "The first target has been shot." Yi Qian's cold voice drifted into the ears of all the paratroopers. These 8 words were like 8 slaps, slapping the squad leader's face again and again. He was slapped the hardest, followed by Captain Lei. The pilot of the helicopter swallowed and whispered, "Amazing! Of course it was amazing!" He was still waiting for instructions from the main shooter to investigate the coordination of the fuselage and complete the shot. In the end, the female soldier did it herself. This marksmanship was unbelievable. Was there a second person in the Army, Navy, and Air Force who could do it? There probably wasn't a second person, only one. Yi Qian, who had gotten off to a good start, focused on the center of the upper part of the crosshairs, the fluorescent dot used for night aiming. She said calmly, "It's just begun. There are still 2 more difficult shots to complete." Then she reported the wind speed and direction. When the helicopter descended, she asked the pilot to adjust the fuselage. As the fuselage deviated, Yi Qian saw a flashing red target in the thick smoke that had yet to disperse. At this time, Yi Qian had already outlined a flat picture in his mind. The picture was calm, and although there was no sunlight, there were faint stars. She saw the position of the second target in the faint starlight and judged her best shot through the wind speed, direction, temperature, and humidity. Breathing steadily, the pilot reported a 500-meter descent. Yi Qian completed his second shot. Captain Lei and his comrades had only one expression. They were so shocked that they shouted in their hearts, "How is this possible? How is this possible? How is this possible? How did she do it? How did she do it? How did she know? How could she? Countless, how could she?" Like 10,000 horses galloping in his heart, they whistled through his heart over and over again. "The second target has been shot." Yi Qian's clear voice came through the earpiece again. The paratrooper lowered his head slightly and secretly raised his hand to slap himself. "Did you see that? Did you see that? Do you see how powerful the female soldiers are? Does your face hurt? It hurts." No wonder the female soldier didn't answer him just now. It wasn't that she didn't know how to answer him, it was that she didn't bother to answer him. Captain Lei sucked in his slightly stiff cheeks, back and forth twice to make sure he could speak normally. "Looking for the third target. Team members, get ready." "Got it. Got it. Got it." 3 voices came. The paratroopers needed to be ready to parachute at any time. It was dark below, and they couldn't see any danger. They only knew that they had to complete the parachute and complete the deep battle. Chapter 4982. The female soldier had made them regret what they had said, so they had to perform well and let the female soldier see their abilities as paratroopers. This was not only an early performance, but also a contest between soldiers from different branches of the military. It was not a secret contest, but a direct contest on the stage. The paratrooper gritted his teeth and pulled the strap of his parachute tightly with both hands. There was a cold determination in his eyes. He could not let the female soldier look down on him. Yi Qian really did not look down on any of the paratroopers in the helicopter. After learning that they were special scouts among the paratroopers, Yi Qian only respected them and did not look down on them. The so-called looking down on them was just them looking down on Yi Qian as a female soldier. When they saw the abilities of the female soldier, they knew that they had thought too much. After the second target was shot, another thick fog rose. This time, it was not rolling up from the ground, but straight up into the sky. The thick fog is a simulation of the fog that will be generated after the completion of tomorrow's experiment. It concerns the cooperation between the pilot and his comrade. Now, the pilot will avoid it first, and you will continue to keep an eye on the ground and look for the third target. After Captain Lei finished speaking, Yi Qian, who had been holding the gun without moving, finally had a moment of movement. She raised her left arm and shook it to strengthen the blood circulation in her arm and maintain the flexibility of her arm so that she could better control the sniper rifle in her hand. The rushing thick fog made the pilot adjust the direction of the helicopter. He first pulled the helicopter out of the thick fog and waited until the fog had thinned before descending again. The thick fog created a blind spot for the pilot and also provided cover. Therefore, the pilot had to descend again before the thick fog completely dispersed. Once the fog dispersed and he completed the descent, the mission would also be considered a failure. Yi Qian looked for the third target. The pilot was responsible for descending, while the other 4 paratroopers were responsible for observing the ground. The 6 of them cooperated with each other and no one could leave the other. The helicopter descended 400 meters. Yi Qian found the third target from a weak spot in the thick fog and immediately told the pilot the position. With the cooperation of the pilot, Yi Qian once again aimed at the faintly discernible third target. After the third sniper bullet was fired, before the sniper rifle was put away, Yi Qian informed the 4 people who were waiting for the parachute through his earpiece, "The third target has been shot." The blinking red dot disappeared completely. Yi Qian had completed her mission and left the rest to the 4 paratroopers. The helicopter's altitude rose again until it could complete the airborne landing. Captain Lei shouted "Jump" in a low voice. Yi Qian's heart tightened and the paratrooper, Xiao Tu, took the lead to rush out of the open hatch. The figure that dashed out fearlessly instantly became a black dot in Yi Qian's eyes. Yi Qian only felt his heart jump to his throat, as if it would rush out of his throat with just a little fright. Xiao Tu was the first to jump, followed by the other 2 paratroopers. Captain Lei was the last to jump. Yi Qian watched as one figure after another rushed out and jumped down before her eyes. She deeply admired their fearless spirit. Although the types of soldiers were different, their spirit was the same. As soldiers of the motherland, when faced with difficulties, when faced with the choice between life and death, when they needed to rush to the forefront and exchange their flesh and blood for the safety behind them, no one would shrink back, no one would run away because they were soldiers. They fought to protect their whole lives. Soon, the ground transmitted the news that Captain Lei had landed safely and successfully reached the infiltration position. This meant that tonight's training had entered the countdown. Chapter 4983. At 10 o'clock at night, the helicopter landed on the ground. The bright light shone in front of them, illuminating the 4 figures who were quickly putting away their parachute. Yi Qian, who came down from the helicopter, stared at the 4 figures for a long time. She didn't look away until the pilot in charge of the helicopter walked to her side. Our country's paratroopers usually landed between 400 and 800 meters. The lower the jump, the shorter the time in the air, which was more advantageous to the battle situation and correspondingly higher the risk factor. Just now, Captain Lei and the others had completed the jump at a height of 280 meters. Being able to jump below 300 meters and above 1,000 meters was definitely not the training of ordinary paratroopers. She was also certain that 280 meters was definitely not their lowest altitude jump. Perhaps they could even do it as low as 100 meters. But for a rookie like her who had never jumped before, completing a jump at a height of 280 meters was quite amazing. "The drill is over. Aren't you going over?" the pilot standing beside Yi Qian asked with a smile. This was a very young pilot who was also a Special Forces scout in Captain Lei's team. He could operate several different types of aircraft, from helicopters to military helicopters. The country needed several years to train a pilot who could operate several different types of aircraft. If an accident happened to a Special Forces scout, the comrades in the team would immediately protect the pilot and retreat. Yi Qian, who stood still, smiled and said, "I was shocked by your brilliance. I still need to catch my breath." Yi Qian's eyes were full of admiration as she looked at the figures who had finished organizing the team with their parachute. She said, "Paratroopers are really difficult. Every jump is a life and death jump. If you're afraid of death, don't be a paratrooper. It's really not a slogan." She was full of admiration and emotion, which made the pilot beside her a little embarrassed. "It's nothing. Everyone is the same. Your army is also quite dangerous. Like you, the danger you face is definitely many times higher than the danger faced by ordinary soldiers. The missions carried out by the Snowfield Brigade were indeed very dangerous. Perhaps because of her respect for paratroopers, Yi Qian still felt that paratroopers were more dangerous. For example, if the parachute landed on a tree branch, one's feet could neither go up nor down in the air. Once the enemy was alerted, one would be shot as a target, or accidentally landing on a cliff, deep water, swamp, or where the enemy was concentrated. All these unpredictable factors were very likely to happen, and although each mission carried out by the Snowfield Brigade also had unpredictable factors of danger, at least it could be reduced through planning. It's not like the paratroopers, who were full of unknown factors before they landed. The pilot felt that the female soldier next to him was very humble. She was so humble that he felt a little ashamed. He secretly glanced at the female soldier next to him from the corner of his eyes. Seeing that her gaze was still filled with respect when she looked at her comrades, the pilot suddenly thought of how his comrades treated Yi Jian before and suddenly felt a little upset. Their attitude towards the female soldiers was cold and indifferent, but the female soldiers were humble and respectful towards them. The pilot felt even more upset. He pursed his lips and said sincerely, "I'm sorry, Yi Jian. I apologize for our narrow-mindedness. Please forgive our ignorance." Yi Qian turned to the pilot and gave him a warm smile. "I was a little unhappy at the time, but not because you doubted or were unhappy with me, but because—" The slight pause made the pilot's heart sink a few times. He stuttered, But what?" Chapter 4984. The pilot's nervousness made Yi Qian smile. He sighed and replied, "It's your discrimination against female soldiers that made me angry. Did you look down on me because I was a female soldier?" The straightforward questioning made the pilot want to find a hole to hide in. His face turned red and embarrassed. Yes, at that time, a little. He was so nervous that half of his tongue was bitten off by a cat. He couldn't even finish a sentence. The pilot's honesty made Yi Qian smile. There are many female soldiers who are quite good. You just haven't met them yet. At that time, I was angry because you discriminated against the female soldiers. I wanted to return the favor to you." The pilot, who was sweating profusely, cleared his throat and said, "You returned the favor. You returned the favor when you fired the first shot. We didn't expect you to shoot suddenly. You even fired before we descended. You were fast and accurate. We didn't even know when you fired. I wasn't the only one who didn't know when you fired. Captain Lei and my comrades were all stunned. Yi Qian, are you the best sniper in your team?" This concerned the reputation of the Snowfield Brigade. Even if the other party didn't know about the existence of the Snowfield Brigade, Yi Qian had to nod and say, "Our comrades in the team are all very good. Everyone has their own specialties. They will cooperate with each other as well as you and complete every mission with outstanding result." All of them were as good as the female soldier in front of him. The pilot's eyes were filled with yearning. "You're so good. I wonder if I'll have the chance to experience it." "I think so. I used to yearn for you paratroopers. I've always wanted to see how good paratroopers are. Look, the opportunity came just like that. I didn't even have time to prepare. If you still want to prepare, then we'll be even more ashamed. We're really sorry about tonight. Don't take it to heart. We won't make the same mistake again. Your wonderful paratroopers have already extinguished the anger in my heart. I didn't take it to heart. What's done is done. I think you won't look down on female soldiers when you see them in the future." The pilot, whose face was so red that it was burning, waved his hand. I'm sorry. With this lesson, we won't dare to look down on female soldiers again." What really angered Yi Qian was their discrimination against her. However, she had already retaliated with all her might. Needless to say, she believed that the male soldiers who discriminated against her were feeling terrible right now. When they saw her later, they would probably be so embarrassed that they wouldn't even know where to look. On the other side, Captain Lei said coldly to his comrade, Xiao Tu, when you see Yi Qian later, you better be polite. She's just following orders from above. I didn't criticize you in front of Yi Qian just now because I didn't want to make things difficult for you in front of the army. Don't be so arrogant. Do you really think she's easy to bully? Did you see her sniping skills? Do you think Big Head is as good as her? If you don't, then shut up and stop picking on her. Do you understand? In order to prevent Xiao Tu from continuing to pick on Yi Qian in the next day, Captain Lei took this opportunity to warn the soldier to prevent him from talking nonsense again. The other two soldiers were the same. They were all warned by Captain Lei. Captain Lei himself also reflected on himself. If it wasn't for him, as the captain, not having the right attitude, the soldiers under him wouldn't have followed suit and criticized themselves first. Chapter 49-85. The truth was just as Yi Qian thought. When the paratrooper saw Yi Qian, he was so embarrassed that he didn't know where to look. After apologizing for what he had done, he closed his eyes and said with an expression that said, "Come on, if you want to kill me, I won't fight back. Wasn't it just a beating and a scolding? I'll just close my eyes and grit my teeth." He faced it so resolutely that Yi Qian was speechless. Strict military discipline, dignified conduct, abide by public order, respect for social ethics. Have you forgotten all of that? Or is it that you don't like me and want to use another method to get back at me after slapping your face? Beating and scolding? I'm sorry, I've always abided by the rules. I can recite the 3 main disciplines and the 8 points of caution. Kill me, cut me. Could it be that I'm not clear-headed after parachuting just now? When the paratrooper heard this, he panicked. I. Why are you like this? I. You. The more anxious he was, the more he couldn't say a complete sentence. Captain Lei, whose mouth was twitching, couldn't take it anymore. He kicked the paratrooper's butt, causing the paratrooper to stumble and fall straight towards Yi Qian. Yi Qian, who had quick reflexes, quickly dodged. The 2 paratroopers behind Captain Lei had already chosen to look up at the sky at the same time. Really? They were too ashamed to look. Their captain didn't even kick the other party when he kicked, which was already embarrassing enough. In the end, he had to throw himself at him after failing to apologize. They were so embarrassed that they wanted to explode on the spot. Their reputation was shattered into pieces, and they couldn't even hold it up. When Captain Lei saw that he had made a mistake in his haste, he quickly apologized first. I'm sorry. Seeing him like that, my heart is burning with anger. The paratrooper didn't mean anything else. He really sincerely apologized to you, but he's clumsy and doesn't know how to speak. We also keep the 3 main disciplines and the 8 points of caution in our hearts at all times. How can we knowingly break the law? We didn't mean to deliberately target you. It was getting more and more complicated, damn it. He felt like his head was about to explode. Even an apology was problematic. Of course, Yi Qian knew that Xiao Tu did not have any other intentions. It was even more impossible for him to intentionally make her make a mistake. She was a female soldier, so she was petty. She had been bullied by Xiao Tu before, and now she was just asking for some interest. Yi Qian, who had always been open-minded, also had a taboo. Did he look down on female soldiers? Discriminating against female soldiers? Look, I'll teach you a lesson. Waving his hand, Yi Qian calmly said, I accept your apology, but there's no need to kill or torture me. It's getting late. If there's nothing else, you should return to camp. Don't delay tomorrow's business. Seeing that Yi Qian did not continue to harp on it, Captain Lei was relieved. It's fine. Let's go back to the camp. After that, he glared at Xiao Tu, who was standing firm, and planned to settle the score when they got back. Even an apology can cause problems. You really need to be taught a lesson. Meanwhile, Yi Qian, who had vented his anger, secretly curled his lips, indicating that he was in a good mood. Looking down on and discriminating against female soldiers was intolerable. When it was time to make a move, he would make a move. He would not allow himself to be wronged. Yes, Captain Xia taught him that. When he returned to the pioneer battalion and did not see his girlfriend, Xia Jinyuan, who was leading the training, sneezed a few times. After the training ended, Lieutenant Colonel Xia quickly made himself a cup of concentrated ginger tea to prevent himself from catching a cold. On the way back to the camp, Captain Lei, who was self-reflecting and criticizing himself, maintained a very proper attitude. When he spoke to Yi Qian could directly feel that Captain Lei's attitude and tone towards her had changed greatly. Chapter 4986. There was no longer the casual attitude of, "You come, we're just going through the motions." Instead, there was more caution. This caution came from Captain Lei thinking about why the higher-ups arranged for Yi Qian to be in his team. What was their intention? Could it be that the higher-ups wanted to transfer Yi Qian to a different type of soldier and put him in his team? As the thought flashed through his mind, Captain Lei's back was sweating in the -10°C night. Impossible. It didn't exist. Would the army be willing to let him go? Would the leaders of Yi Qian's unit agree? They would probably fight to the death and not let him go. But if that wasn't the case, why would the higher-ups let Yi Qian come over? What was the Air Force headquarters plan? What did the Army headquarters want to do? Although their team wasn't a top-secret special force, it was still a force that didn't show up easily. It had always been in a hidden position. If they didn't intend for Yi Qian to be transferred to his team, why would the higher-ups arrange such a thing? Not only did he lose face, but his heart was also in a mess. He couldn't figure out what the higher-ups wanted to do. After thinking about it, Captain Lei still believed that his initial guess was very likely. The higher-ups wanted to transfer Yi Qian to the airborne team. If that was the case, Captain Lei glanced at the female soldier walking with him. With her heaven-defying marksmanship, he welcomed her with open arms. Some time ago, during a military meeting, the division commander suggested that the team recruit a group of female soldiers. Captain Lei's eyes suddenly lit up. That's right. The division commander suggested at the meeting some time ago to immediately arrange for a female soldier from the army to be trained in his team. The division commander also personally instructed him to observe for 2 days, but he couldn't tell the female soldier that this was the arrangement of the higher-ups. Wasn't the purpose obvious? It was obviously to arrange for a female soldier to be in his team. To snatch such a powerful female soldier from the army, the division commander and the headquarters probably had a fight with the army's chief. After the experiment, he had to call the division commander to ask if he was injured and if he won. Yi Qian didn't know that Captain Lei was thinking about a lot of nonsensical things. Seeing that they were about to reach the tent, Yi Qian thought of a question. "Captain Lei, do I need to stand guard tonight?" Yi Qian asked directly where he was going to sleep tonight. He could only ask tactfully. Captain Lei smiled and looked at Yi Qian differently. "I don't arrange for you to stand guard tonight. The tent with the sand table is where you'll rest tonight. There's a sleeping bag. We'll gather at 5 o'clock. Wake up on time." Yi Jian, who knew where she slept, could feel a subtle change in Captain Lei's eyes. She wanted to guess the reason, but she heard Captain Lei say, "Did you want to be a paratrooper before?" Yi Jian's answer made Captain Lei's heart tighten. No wonder the division commander said not to tell the female soldiers that it was arranged by the higher-ups. Seeing that Captain Lei was still standing, Yi Qian felt more and more strange. She already felt strange about today's and tomorrow's arrangements. Now, Captain Lei's questions increased the doubts in Yi Qian's heart. After thinking of a certain point, the alarm bells in her heart rang. She said seriously, "I'm looking forward to being a paratrooper because I think it's very powerful. But I still like the army. I like the feeling of being down to earth. Also, I'm afraid of heights. Xia was afraid of heights. Captain Lei, who left, couldn't believe it. At the same time, he understood more about his division commander's good intentions. In order to get the female soldiers into their paratroopers, division commander, you've worked hard. Chapter 49-87. Captain Lei completely misunderstood and thought he saw the truth. Yi Qian was full of doubts. She went back to her tent and got into her sleeping bag. Listening to the Gobi wind and sand, although her eyes were closed, her heart didn't stop for a moment. Her brain was also working quickly. She thought for a long time but still couldn't figure out why the higher-ups arranged this. She ran to the Air Force from the Army and had several elite paratroopers accompany her to a drill. It was called a drill, but it was more like a test for her. Why did they want to ask paratroopers to test her? Don't they think it's weird for an army to be tested by a few paratroopers? Thinking about it, Yi Qian thought of what Captain Lei said before sending her back to her tent. It shocked Yi Qian so much that she sat up with her sleeping bag. Captain Lei asked her if she wanted to be a paratrooper before and if she yearned for it. In all honesty, she only knew about the paratroopers in her sophomore year. After that, she realized how powerful the paratroopers were. Yearning, no. Only admiration. Then, why did Captain Lei ask this? Could it be? Captain Lei thought she would change her profession? Change her profession. Yi Qian couldn't fall asleep at all. She subconsciously wanted to find her man, Xia Jinyuan, to see if he could figure it out. The Gobi was surrounded by barren mountains and sandy field. After entering the experimental center, Yi Qian, who was isolated from the world, could only think about Xia Jinyuan in her heart. Captain Lei misunderstood that the paratroopers wanted to snatch people from the army. Yi Qian also thought that the higher-ups found out about her relationship with Xia Jinyuan and wanted to separate them. One was from the Air Force and the other was from the army. They were separated and belonged to different forces. Their half-hidden relationship could be exposed directly under the sun. But it was not what they thought. They were separated and belonged to different forces. They would rather their relationship be hidden forever. It was not a big problem that their relationship was discovered. The big problem was, who wanted to separate her from Captain Xia. Although Yi Qian was not sensitive to politics, Xia Jinyuan used to talk to her from time to time and analyze the various problems they might face if their relationship was discovered. Even though she was not sensitive to politics, she was so shocked that she did not feel sleepy at all. Yi Qian was tormented until 1 o'clock in the morning. Thinking about tomorrow's business, he forced himself to stop thinking about it. He cleared his mind of distracting thoughts and urged himself to sleep. Captain Lei wanted to report all the data of Yi Qian's drill tonight to the division commander. His rank was not high. Although he was a lieutenant colonel, he could not contact the division commander as he wished. If it were not for Yi Qian, Captain Lei would not be able to talk to the division commander immediately. A division commander of the Air Force received Yi Qian's data and read it carefully. Finally, it fell to Captain Lei's long comment. The division commander's eyes moved slightly, and his fingers rubbed the paper as if he was thinking about something. This was a temporary conference room, a military tent set up with light steel brackets. There were various special instruments inside, and more than 10 computer screens lit up. Images constantly flashed on the screens, but lines of data flashed one after another. More than a dozen data analysts were completely sleepless, just so that tomorrow's experiment could be completed smoothly. There was a large screen in the middle of the conference room. The screen was currently dark. Tomorrow morning, the screen would show the entire body of the missile that had been tested. It would completely show the missile from entering the capsule to launch and explosion. There is a discrepancy in the data here. The imported value should be. In front of dozens of computers, an extremely elegant major general with a golden epaulette and glasses leaned slightly and pointed out the wrong data. Even if the direction is slightly off, it will lead to the failure of the experiment. Chapter 4988. The data analyst in the base quickly regenerated the password and checked it again. When he saw that there was really a discrepancy in the value, he quickly corrected the value. The Major General who was standing next to him nodded and patted the shoulder of the data analyst. He then turned around and walked to the next computer. Fu Gong hasn't slept for 3 days and 3 nights. He walked past you and found the problem. Amazing! Another data analyst whispered while waiting for the data to be imported. His words were full of respect for Fu Gong. That's why we say that Fu Gong has sharp eyes. All the big data is in front of Fu Gong. Even if there's a small problem in the value, it can't escape Fu Gong's eyes. The technical soldier who finished changing the value was relieved. Although the problem was very small, there was still a problem. Even the slightest error was enough to cause an experiment to fail. Then he would become the sinner of the entire army. The countless days and nights of countless engineers in the base would all be wasted. In order to ensure that every data and value was correct, they went through it again. They didn't dare to make any mistakes. A numerical error could affect the success or failure of the entire experiment. No one dared to be careless. The information in the control center didn't reach the ears of the leaders sitting at the conference table. Everything was being prepared for tomorrow's experiment in an orderly manner. A division commander of the Air Force raised his head from his subordinate's report, turned around, and whispered to a major general who was leaning over the conference table. "Old Yang, we're old classmates, and I've never asked you to do anything for me. Now I have a small favor to ask of you. You won't reject me, right?" Major General Yang looked up and replied with a smile, "No matter if it's a big or small matter, I'll reject it." His gaze fell on the piece of paper that was not completely hidden. He tapped the tip of his pen and said, "Old Kong, do you think I don't know what you're thinking? Xiao Yi is a talent in our army. We've trained her for many years. Now that she's a talent, do you think I'll give her to you? Xiao Ye's data is out, right? Let me see. I really don't want to show it to him." Division Commander Kong really didn't want to show it to him. He hid it well and said, "What data of Xiao Yi? No. You do what you need to do. I'll go out and get some fresh air and sleep." He didn't expect the army to put such a talent in his airborne unit. What was the saying again? Well, if she came, she was his soldier. Since he had already sent her here, how could he send her back? Did he think that the airborne team wasn't in? Division Commander Kong, who cherished talent and wanted to snatch them away, decided not to let them go. He even planned to have a chat with Commander-in-Chief Xia. There were a lot of talented people in the army, and although there were also a lot of talented people in the Air Force, there were not many female paratroopers. He had to fight for it. If he really couldn't fight for it, he would have to reluctantly let her go. After saying that, Division Commander Kong got up and thought about a lot of things. Major General Yang, who was sitting still, was shocked by the shameless behavior of his former junior high school classmate. He got up, and Major General Yang also got up. It was not convenient to talk in the tent, so they had to talk outside. Division Commander Kong, who wanted to act alone, saw Major General Yang and quickly pushed him into the room. "Go, go, go. What are you doing out here? Are you still playing surveillance? What are you doing here? Go in, go in. You can come out when I come back." Old Kong, everyone says that you, the commander of the Air Force, are a scoundrel. In the past, I still defended you because we were old classmates, but now it seems that you were not wronged. Chapter 4989. Major General Yang, who was pushed in, was not angry. It was not the first time he had encountered such a thing. 2 years ago, the Navy also wanted to detain people. But what happened later? If that was the case, it would not be the Army Yiqian now, but the Navy Yiqian. Division Commander Kong was flexible and did not care about his old classmates' words. In order to keep people, he was always willing to go all out. What rascal! I don't understand what you're saying. Hurry up and go in. Don't delay me. He pushed Major General Yang into the tent again and hurried out to find Commander-in-Chief Xia. Although the focus of this experiment was air defense, it was mainly for the Air Force. However, the Army also had its own aviation regiment, so the Army naturally attached great importance to it. Therefore, except for the Navy's chief, the Air Force and the Army's chief were all present. Commander-in-Chief Xia was originally still in the tent. Because of his severe cold, he was slightly better and was asked to go back to rest in advance by the guards around him. As a result, although he was not in the tent, he still did not rest. The Air Force commander walked over with familiarity. Commander-in-Chief Xia was drinking medicine under the supervision of the guards. Before the medicine was finished, Division Commander Kong walked in. This place belonged to the Experiment Command Center. It was about 3 kilometers away from the experiment center and even farther away from the explosion site. The closest to the explosion site was Captain Lei and the others. In the middle of the night, Division Commander Kong did not beat around the bush and directly stated his purpose. Commander-in-Chief Xia handed the white pill in his hand to the guard and sighed. The Air Force Command asked to borrow people from my side, and I did. It was to your liking. If it was not to your liking, I don't think you would have come tonight. I won't say much. If you want to borrow people, I'll lend them. Now you don't want to return what you borrowed, and you still want to keep the people who borrowed it. Old Kong, do you think your reputation is not big enough that even the Air Force can't tolerate it? Do you want to spread it to the Army? Commander-in-Chief Xia was better at talking than Major General Yang. Division Commander Kong also felt that he was not being very kind at the beginning. Commander-in-Chief Xia. Division Commander Kong wanted to complain, to persuade Commander-in-Chief Xia, but Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't want to listen to him. Division Commander Kong raised his head, but Commander-in-Chief Xia waved his hand to stop him from continuing. You can make a trip to the Air Force headquarters and complain to them. That's where you should be. As the Commander-in-Chief of the Army, I have to listen to you, the Commander of the Air Force, complain. As the saying goes, don't wash your dirty linen in public. You're complaining about the Air Force in front of me. I'm afraid that the next time I meet the Chief of your headquarters, they'll glare at me until I'm black and blue. Division Commander Kong rubbed his forehead and sighed in his heart. It was said that the Commander-in-Chief Xia of the Army was an old fox. He looked easy to talk to, but in reality, it was extremely difficult to get any benefits from him. Today, he had seen it for himself. The words, "Don't wash your dirty linen in public," made him speechless. Where are the people? If you want to borrow them for 2 days, then so be it. I'll just treat it as a chance for my soldiers to learn from your parachute division commander. You can forget about anything else. Even if you think about it, it's useless. Talent. People are talents if they stay in my team. If they go to your Air Force, no matter how talented they are, they won't be my soldiers. You should rest early and dream less. You're not young anymore. Don't have unrealistic dreams so that it won't harm your body. Division Commander Kong, who came in high spirits, left in defeat. Well, no. He was politely sent back to his tent by Commander-in-Chief Xia. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who couldn't sleep, could finally avoid the guards nagging and openly returned to his tent. He also found his future-in-law, Chief Engineer Fu, to ask if everything went well. Chapter 4990. Father Fu, who had not slept for 3 days and 3 nights, took off his glasses and applied some eye drops to his sore eyes. Because they were in-laws, Father Fu was much more relaxed. He closed his eyes and smiled tiredly. It went well. Everyone, get into position and wait for the experiment to begin tomorrow. Commander-in-Chief Xia was overjoyed. That's good. Once the experiment is successful, The strength of our country's Air Force will definitely rise to another level. Yes, it will greatly improve our air combat ability and increase the accuracy of the ground. If we really have to fight one day, we will have a chance of winning. When it came to fighting in the air, it was a life-and-death battle between fighter jets and weapons. Just one shot was enough to destroy the opponent's fighter jet. Opening his bloodshot eyes, Mr. Fu threw a look at the conference table. Something seemed to have occurred to him, and the tiredness on his face faded. I heard that my daughter is here too. Does she have time to attend the banquet? I want to see my daughter. She provoked the commander of the Air Force to snatch her away. How could his daughter be so outstanding? When Papa Fu asked the question, the corners of his lips curled up. Commander-in-Chief Xia was also happy. The girl that Fu Gong mentioned was also his family Xia's daughter. However, time was a little tight and the father and daughter might not be able to see each other. She is temporarily on loan from the Air Force. The Air Force will arrange her time, so I can't make the decision. She is not far from us and is guarding the experimental center. Why don't we go and see her now? It was a very tempting suggestion. As the chief engineer, Father Fu was already running between both sides. When he learned that his daughter was at the experimental center, he immediately finished the following tasks and jumped into the patrol car to take Commander-in-Chief Xia to see his daughter-in-law. Father Fu could enter and leave the experimental center at will, and so could Commander-in-Chief Xia. When the sentinel let them in, he immediately arranged for soldiers to take the two chiefs to find them. Therefore, Yi Qian, who had finally fallen asleep, almost thought that he had misheard when he heard Father Fu's voice. When Father Fu called out, "Lass," Yi Qian stood up vigorously. He opened the sleeping bag, crawled out of the sleeping bag, and stood up again in one breath. In the blink of an eye, he rushed out of the tent. "Dad!" she cried out in joy. When the exhausted Father Fu heard his daughter's voice, he felt a sweetness in his heart. Even his spirit was lifted. He felt that it wouldn't be a problem for him to stay up for another 3 days and 3 nights. Commander-in-Chief Xia coughed reservedly to remind Yi Qian that as his future father-in-law, he could not favor one over the other. Yi Qian had already rushed out of the tent and was rushing towards Father Fu. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice, so he braked and greeted respectfully, "Greetings, Commander-in-Chief." The former was affectionate, while the latter was respectful. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't feel good. He didn't need to be respectful. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who wanted to have a daughter and be a loving father, felt depressed. When he saw Yi Qian holding Father Fu's arm and acting coquettishly, Commander-in-Chief Xia couldn't help but feel depressed. It was all Sixth Brother's fault. He should have married her earlier. If he had married her earlier, he could have been a loving father earlier. When he saw Father Fu coming over, Yi Qian was so surprised that he didn't feel sleepy at all. He held Father Fu's arm and the first thing he said was, "Happy New Year." Yes, the 15th day of the first lunar month hadn't passed yet. It was still the first lunar month. Father Fu smiled until his eyes narrowed. He still had to rush back, but he didn't want to disturb Yi Qian's rest. After chatting for less than half an hour, he had to leave. Yi Qian was still a little reluctant to leave. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who could occasionally speak a few words, was afraid that Father Fu would be soft-hearted and stay. He sighed to Yi Qian and said, "Your father hasn't slept for 3 days and 3 nights. When he found out that you were here, he rushed over. Don't chat too late. Let your father rest early." Yi Qian didn't dare to stay any longer. He hurriedly asked Father Fu to go back and rest. Father Fu didn't want to disturb his daughter, so he smiled and agreed to go back and rest immediately. Director Xia still had something to do, so he asked Father Fu to go back to the car first. He would leave after he finished talking. Chapter 49-91. Commander-in-Chief Xia had something to say to Yi Qian in private. Before Father Fu left, He gently hugged Yi Qian and said something. Commander-in-Chief Xia saw his future daughter-in-law nod vigorously. The relationship between the father and daughter was so good that Commander-in-Chief Xia was envious. Why didn't he have a daughter? A daughter was so good and considerate. She could even act coquettishly to her father. If she was bullied by a brat outside, as a father, he could roll up his sleeves and teach the brat a lesson. Just thinking about it made him very happy. Unfortunately, his family only had one devil incarnate. Acting coquettishly and being bullied didn't exist. His fatherly love didn't allow him to show it. It wasn't easy for him to have a daughter-in-law. It wasn't easy for him to remind his daughter-in-law to look for him if she was bullied. In the end, when his daughter-in-law's real father appeared, he, as her future father-in-law, had to step aside obediently. He couldn't even show his jealousy. Commander-in-Chief Xia looked at Father Fu's back as he left. Then, he saw Yi Qian's reluctant gaze. Not only did his eyes turn red, even his heart turned red. It's better to have a granddaughter in the future. A granddaughter is good, a good granddaughter. Family Xia needs a granddaughter the most. Father Fu, who looked back repeatedly with every step, even waved at Yi Qian when he was far away. As for Yi Qian, he was afraid that Father Fu couldn't see him. He tiptoed and waved back. Before he put down his arm, he suddenly heard Commander-in-Chief Xia sigh beside him. Every time I leave home, that brat's sixth brother never stands there to see me off. He only waves to tell me to quickly disappear from his sight. It was a sigh, a little melancholy, and a little sadness. When Yi Qian heard it, he felt sad for Commander-in-Chief Xia. He hurriedly said, "Commander-in-Chief Xia, Captain Xia's personality is like this. Even if he treats you well, he won't say it out loud. I also often hear Captain Xia talk about his childhood. He said that the happiest time of his childhood was when you came back from the military. The unhappiest day of Lieutenant Colonel Xia's childhood was when Regiment Commander Xia came back from the army. Because, as long as Regiment Commander Xia came back, the devil incarnate would be beaten up. It was not just a light beating, but a vicious beating with a belt. So much so that even now, when Lieutenant Colonel Xia mentioned the past, he still felt a burning pain in his back. He couldn't help but sigh at how the shadow of his childhood had taken up his entire heart, so much so that no matter how great the shadow afterwards was, it couldn't cover up the shadow of his childhood. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't believe him. "Don't mention him. If you mention sixth brother a few more times, I probably won't be able to sleep tonight. You don't speak up for him. I know what he's capable of." "Xiao Yi, you have to remember what Uncle said before. Don't tolerate being bullied by him. You have to tell Uncle. Don't be afraid, okay?" Commander-in-Chief Xia belonged to the category of eunuchs from other families. Other eunuchs would only discipline their sons and not their daughters-in-law. In the face of such a good future father-in-law, Yi Qian felt a lot of pressure. Could it be that in his future father-in-law's eyes, Captain Xia was a bastard who bullied his wife? As his girlfriend, Yi Qian wiped away her boyfriend's tears. Captain Xia didn't have it easy either. He always had a father who liked to slander him. Luckily, his girlfriend was her. If it were someone else, maybe the moment Commander-in-Chief Xia opened his mouth, the person who replaced him would immediately leave. Yi Qian, who was talking to herself, replied respectfully, don't worry. I can still fight now. If Captain Xia really wants to bully me, I'll spar with Captain Xia. If I lose, I'll ask for your support. If I win, I'll ask for your praise." Yi Qian already knew how to make Commander-in-Chief Xia happy after interacting with him for a few years. She had accumulated a wealth of experience. That was, stand on Commander-in-Chief Xia's side and slander her boyfriend together. Chapter 49-92. A few seconds ago, Commander-in-Chief Xia was upset because he didn't have a considerate little girl, but now, he was glowing as if he had drunk a glass of sorghum wine. Yes, 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 that's right. Especially when you join his team in the future, he will have more opportunities to bully you. You don't spoil him. Think of a way to rope in your comrades. If he dares to bully you, let your comrades find something for him to do. This is called fighting in a roundabout way and protecting yourself. Yi Qian didn't shed tears for Xia Jinyuan, but shed tears of sympathy. Yi Qian, who silently shed tears of blood for her boyfriend, didn't forget the main point. Her eyes moved slightly as she asked, "Commander-in-Chief, I'm still going according to the original plan, right? There are no changes. You just focus on the next 2 months. Whether or not they can form a female Special Forces unit will depend on themselves." Commander-in-Chief Xia reassured Yi Qian. The Air Force also intends to form a female Special Forces unit, but there are many concerns and they haven't implemented it yet. You are only temporarily loaning someone from the Air Force. In a few days, you will return to the Pioneer Battalion. Yi Qian was completely relieved. She knew that she had been overthinking things at night. She wouldn't be discovered, she wouldn't be deliberately used, and she wouldn't be transferred to any branch of the military. It was all her own imagination and worries. But why did the Air Force come to the army to borrow people? Yi Qian wanted to ask, but she immediately swallowed the words. There must be a reason why the Air Force came to borrow people. Since the higher-ups had been hiding it from her, she wouldn't get an answer even if she pursued it. It would only make her seem impetuous and impatient. The timely pause made Commander-in-Chief Xia smile. The Air Force has their own reasons for borrowing people from the army. We just have to cooperate. It's getting late. Go back to the tent and rest. Your dad and I should leave too. Don't send us off. The car is just in front. Go back and rest. Yi Qian nodded and obediently went back to the tent. If she didn't go back obediently, she would delay her two fathers' sleep time. It was better to be obedient. Commander-in-Chief Xia got into the car and said to Father Fu, "Brother, I really envy you for having such an obedient daughter like Xiao Yi. I told her not to send me off and to go back to her tent to rest, and she really did. If it were old Sixth, he would definitely go against me. In the future, when the couple has children, the granddaughter's surname will be Xia and the grandson's surname will be Fu. What do you think?" Although Father Fu valued his son as much as his daughter, seeing Commander-in-Chief Xia dislike his son so much, Father Fu was a little puzzled. That's something that will happen many years later. Let's talk about it later. There were too many unpredictable variables in the future. It didn't matter if he succeeded or not now. He had to wait until he reached that step. I'm not joking. Now you should know what I'm talking about. If you don't believe me, how about this? I'll let old Sixth marry into the Fu family. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who despised his son to the point of marrying him off, once again said something shocking. Father Fu turned his head and asked the accompanying bodyguard, "Do you have cold medicine?" He asked the bodyguard accompanying Commander-in-Chief Xia. The bodyguard who had listened to the entire conversation between the two leaders was quite mentally strong. Even in this situation, he was still able to keep a straight face. Division Commander Kong is here. Commander-in-Chief is taking his medicine. He still needs 2 more pills. Okay, keep a close eye on him when we go back later. Since the military doctor has prescribed medicine, he has to take whatever he needs to take. Father Fu sternly instructed the bodyguard. Don't deal with it casually. If the cold drags on for too long, his body will still collapse. The bodyguard nodded, indicating that he would remember. Chapter 49-93. As for the meaning behind Father Fu's words, the guard said that he really didn't understand. He only understood that the chief was very concerned about the commander-in-chief's health, and specifically told him to take good care of the commander-in-chief, and remember to take medicine on time. If he didn't take medicine, the cold wouldn't get better and might even get worse. Commander-in-Chief Xia felt that his future in-law didn't trust him and didn't take his words seriously. Well, when the time came, he would naturally know that he was not joking. Could Father Fu take it seriously? How could he take it seriously? Family Xia's son marrying into the Fu family? As the head of the bride's family, he didn't even dare to think about it, but the father of the groom dared to? Master Xia didn't have a gun, so he had to find a kitchen knife to chop Commander-in-Chief Xia. Commander-in-Chief Xia thought that he could find some comfort in front of Father Fu, but he didn't expect that even Father Fu didn't believe him. The Commander-in-Chief, who couldn't get understood, met Major General Yang early in the morning. Before all the business started, the Commander-in-Chief whispered to his old subordinate, "You said that I married sixth brother into the bride's family, do you believe it?" Major General Yang's first reaction was to quickly look at the guard who followed the Commander-in-Chief closely. Did the Commander-in-Chief take his medicine on time? How was the Commander-in-Chief last night? Commander-in-Chief Xia still had a high fever yesterday afternoon. The military doctor said that he must take his medicine on time. If the fever continued, he had to be put on an intravenous drip. The guard who carried a portable medicine box with him replied. He took his medicine on time according to the military doctor's instructions. He didn't miss anything. They all thought that the Commander-in-Chief had a cold and fever and needed to take his medicine properly. Commander-in-Chief Xia frowned and scolded. "What nonsense are you talking about? Even if I'm sick, are my words also sick? What you're saying now is really sick." Major General Yang secretly thought to himself and smiled slightly. This is not like the capital. It's very cold here. Once you fall sick, it's very difficult to recover in time. I'm also worried that you will keep delaying treatment. Major General Yang pretended that he didn't hear anything about marrying into the bride's family. Commander-in-Chief Xia snorted heavily. "I do have such an idea. Don't think that I'm sick. Sixth brother, I asked him to marry into the bride's family, and he was 100% ecstatic. He couldn't wait to pack himself up and send himself over. Nobody knew him better than his father." Commander-in-Chief Xia knew what Xia Jinyuan was capable of. Major General Yang had been worried about the father and son before, fearing that there would be conflicts between the father and son. Since the last conversation, Major General Yang knew that he had been worrying for nothing. Therefore, he could calmly answer the Commander-in-Chief, "You can try. The probability should be more than 90%. If he agreed, Old Sixth would agree, but Old Madam and Old Master would not agree. In the end, Old Madam and Old Master would win, while the father and son would be scolded or beaten. Commander-in-Chief Xia put the idea aside for the time being and planned to find an opportunity to bring it up in the future. Xia Jinyuan, who woke up early in the morning to train, found out later that he was eager to make a move. But if he brought it up himself, he would inevitably be beaten up by the Old Madam and Old Master, so he asked Commander-in-Chief Xia to bring it up. Commander-in-Chief Xia sneered. If he dared to bring it up, would he still need to ask him to bring it up himself? Thus, the father and son gave up and no longer mentioned marrying into the bride's family. They had no choice. They didn't dare to bring it up. Chapter 49-94. Yi Qian, who took off with the airborne troops, did not know that Xia Jinyuan had almost married into the Fu family. She had been holding the sniper rifle that she had practiced with last night. Together with the airborne troops, she looked down at the Gobi Desert that had experienced the vicissitudes of life. The weather was quite good today. The sun had not yet risen, the sky was as clear as a mirror, and the cold wind that blew over was still dry and chilly. Hidden in the distance were snowy mountains that towered into the sky. Those were the mountains on the other side of the Gobi Desert, vast and magnificent. The picturesque landscape was crisscrossing, and one would not feel tired after looking at it for a long time. From time to time, the pilot's voice came from the headset, telling the comrades on the plane the altitude, wind speed, latitude and latitude. They were now on air patrol. Once they found anything suspicious on the ground, they would immediately report it to the ground and deal with it in time. Wild camels were the most abundant in the Gobi Desert. The airborne troops had to report to the ground in time if they found any traces of wild camels. Once they found the camels were equipped with trackers for research and protection, they would immediately implement interference. Yi Qian, who was participating in this kind of confidential experiment for the first time, focused on the ground through the scope and followed the airborne troops until the afternoon. During this time, they also passed by the area that Yi Qian was responsible for cleaning and guarding yesterday. The military helicopter did not fly too far. She could even see the desert camouflage patterns on the tent. The experiment entered the countdown. All parties were ready and waiting for Chief Engineer Fu Yusheng's order. 10, 9, 8, 7. Father Fu's calm and serious countdown came from the headset. Yi Qian slightly pursed her lips, and her fingers slowly and gently pressed on the trigger. She was not nervous, just calm and waiting for orders. She needed to complete her task so that the airborne troops behind her could reach the ground first. This was a dangerous drill for the airborne troop. The bomb was a new type of aerial artillery that could instantly devour people's lives, and the airborne troops would complete their landing in the sound of the explosion. Before landing, Yi Qian had to finish sniping the target on the ground as soon as possible to clear a path for the airborne troop. "Get ready." Captain Lei's cold voice came. At this time, Captain Lei did not dare to tell Yi Qian to relax or not to be nervous. At this critical time, these words would only add to the psychological pressure. It was better not to say anything. Moreover, with Yi Qian's performance last night, Captain Lei felt that there was no need for him to say anything. 3, 2, 1. Fire! Just as Father Fu's voice trailed off, a large object suddenly shot into the sky from somewhere in the Gobi Desert, dragging a long fiery tail behind it. Countless technicians in the Central Control Center operated their keyboards and various instruments, analyzing data one after another, including oxygen, pressure, air pressure, and a series of data changes were all displayed in a timely manner. Everyone was staring at the big screen, staring at the huge object that was rising into the air in a parabola with a fiery tail. They held their breaths and didn't even blink. Yi Qian, who was sitting high up in the sky, saw a fire dragon that seemed capable of destroying heaven and earth suddenly soar into the sky from within the mountain range. She felt a stinging pain in her eyes as it swept across the sky, heading straight for its target. Follow up. Before the fire disappeared from his eyes, Captain Lei's order was issued again, and 3 military helicopters chased after Huawei like heroes dying for justice. Airborne troops, get ready. Keep up with Finjin, keep up with them. Roger, Roger. The military helicopter followed closely behind with a rumbling sound. It followed in a progressive manner, maintaining the largest safe distance from the beginning. The drill needed to be carried out, and at the same time, safety also needed to be guaranteed. Chapter 49-95. Boom! A loud explosion rang out, and the earth shook as if the world was about to collapse. At the same time, Yi Qian saw thick, gray smoke billowing up from the mountains in front of him. It carried a destructive force as it swept across the ground, instantly swallowing up a few small hills. The power of the shockwave was immense. Even though the 3 military helicopters had been flying at the maximum safe distance, the shockwave still caused them to tremble. At that moment, Yi Qian even had the illusion that the aircraft would disintegrate. The intense trembling of the aircraft made Yi Qian quickly pull back his finger from the trigger. His bright eyes stared straight ahead until his vision suddenly turned hazy. The military helicopters were swallowed up by the thick fog. The ground guidance and radar devices were used to guide the military helicopters in the direction of the fog, ensuring that the helicopters would be able to navigate smoothly. At that moment, the main control center was filled with applause. On the huge screen, the missiles had accurately hit their targets. The accuracy was the highest. There was no deviation, no error. Success. The experiment was a success. 3 days and 3 nights without sleep. It wasn't until 3 o'clock in the morning that Father Fu, who had slept for a while, looked at the thick fog rising from the mountains. At that moment, Father Fu's heart was unexpectedly calm. He didn't waste the country's resources, didn't let the country down, and didn't waste the efforts of all the military researchers in the base. The 5-year research and development was finally a success. Modern warfare was no longer just about ordinary guns and bombs. As mankind continued to advance, the military power of each country was also advancing at a speed that ordinary people didn't know. New guided weapons appeared batch after batch. No one dared to fall behind, and no one dared to stay in the same place. Times changed, and so did wars. If you fell behind, you would be beaten. If other countries developed new weapons, how could our country fall behind? We were already lagging behind by a lot. If we fell behind again in the 21st century, history would repeat itself, and our country would no longer be a country. The soldiers guarded the country, and the military researchers and scientists who developed new weapons used their life's work to build high walls for the country. Outside the high walls, the flames of war might be raging, but inside the high walls, there was only hope for a prosperous life. The success of the experiment caused countless soldiers who had not seen their families for years to shed tears of joy. There were even soldiers who hugged each other tightly and gritted their teeth, using their strength to celebrate the victory. Commander-in-Chief Xia walked up to Father Fu and saluted the scientist who had spent most of his life in the base on behalf of the country and the people. Weapons were a combination of attack and defense. With the development of the new military revolution, war was no longer as simple as a battle of flesh and blood. Building an information-based army to win an information-based war had long become the primary goal of the military development of the world. Our country has been lagging behind the Western countries for many years, and now is the time to catch up. Using information technology to push the development of information-based weapons and equipment is also the primary goal of our military power. And Father Fu, as well as countless scientists like Father Fu, they shouldered the mission of this generation or decades of information-based warfare. They neglected sleep and food, they sacrificed themselves, they didn't care about their families, they cared about the country, they worked hard for national defense as their lifelong goal, they worked hard for the rise of the country until the end of their lives. Commander-in-Chief Xia's salute was for the countless scientists like Father Fu who sacrificed themselves. They were unknown, they were conscientious, they didn't move for the prosperity of the outside world, they carried the back of the country to promote the progress of the country, they were still unknown even when their hair turned white. This salute was for the country's heroes. Chapter 4996. The experiment was a success. Everyone in the control center, from the lieutenant general to the officers, was overjoyed. However, no matter how happy they were, they did not reveal their happiness to the outside world. They kept it in their hearts and tried their best to hold it in. Outside, the soldiers on the sentry post were overjoyed. Their faces were cold and inviolable. However, they gripped their spears even tighter and more firmly. Their current post was the place they had sworn to protect with their lives. They did their best to shoulder the responsibility that came with their uniforms and spears. As soldiers, they had different responsibilities. However, their goal was the same. They were all fighting for the prosperity of their country. In the air, there was also a group of brave warriors who were not afraid of sacrifice. The experiment was a success. However, their test had just begun. The military helicopter that rushed into the thick fog rose into the air at a 15-degree angle. The pilot was familiar with operating the flight guidance device. His fingers pressed various switches and buttons. At the same time, He kept reporting the current flight data. 15 degrees, 300 feet up. Change course, left turn. Aircraft 2, 300 feet up. Change course, left turn. Aircraft 3, close approach. All teams, get ready. Look for targets on the ground. Aircraft 1, take the lead and chase. Snipers, get ready. Aircraft 1, sniper, received. This was Yi Qian's voice. She was the sniper of the Aircraft 1. Execute the high G maneuver. The pilot of the Aircraft 1 operated the needle. The needle moved to the right. The entire military helicopter made a complete right-angle turn and then completed a dive. The sniper Yi Qian found targets on the ground. The fog was too thick and the wind was too strong. They needed the helicopter to continue descending until it was 300 meters away from the ground to complete the shot. There was a small corner at the bottom of the huge screen in the control center. As the technicians operated, the 3 military helicopters entered the eyes of the leaders in the control center. The fog continued to roll. Although the new weapon had successfully exploded, the threat did not immediately disappear. Air Commander Kong changed from sitting to standing. His gaze was fixed on the 3 military helicopters. His palms were slightly hot and cold. Right now, he was a little nervous. He had already witnessed the power of the new weapons. It was not an exaggeration to say that the destructive power of the weapons could cause mountains to crumble and the earth to crack. As for his soldiers and his warriors, in order to be able to charge into the battlefield in the future and gain the initiative in the battle, they had charged into the still powerful artillery fire. Whether they lived or died was unknown. A real drill was not a mere formality. Drills were cruel, and the death rate was even higher than a drill. If 3 military helicopters flew in, perhaps none of them would be able to return safely. Behind the country's prosperity and people's peace, there would always be dripping blood that ordinary people would never know about. There would always be people protecting the country's prosperity and people's peace without any complaints or regret. Father Fu was also staring at the screen. He knew about the Air Force drill, and he was the one who suggested it. He believed that the warriors who went in would return safely. However, Father Fu did not know that his daughter was one of the paratroopers that he was worried about. He did not know, but even if he knew, he had no right to interfere or stop it. Even if he knew, Father Fu would still obey the orders of the higher-ups. He would not add any pressure to his daughter, Yi Qian. Among all the soldiers present, only Commander-in-Chief Xia and Major General Yang knew about this. No one spoke. Although the soldiers were still happy, they temporarily suppressed this joy. It would not be too late to celebrate after the warriors returned safely. Chapter 49-97. Commander-in-Chief Xia stared at the screen coldly. He knew which helicopter Yi Qian was sitting on and what responsibility Yi Qian had to bear. An army soldier had to follow the Air Force to take off and land in the sky. Who knew how difficult it would be to open the hatch and shoot accurately on the ground? Who knew how dangerous it would be? No one knew how difficult it would be, but they knew how dangerous it would be. Whether he would live or die, nothing was known. As soon as the helicopter descended to a height of nearly 300 meters, the tightly shut hatch opened and a black gun barrel stretched out. At the same time, a leg with bent knees stretched out. The sole of the foot hung in the air, and the back of the leg stepped on the edge of the hatch. An Air Force captain next to Division Commander Kong said in a low voice, "The sniper has found the target. It's a female Special Forces soldier from the Army." Division Commander Kong added. His hands, which were originally hanging naturally by his sides, clenched into fists and pressed against the folding conference table. At this moment, Division Commander Kong's expression was exceptionally solemn. Would they succeed? Would they be airborne safely? There was no way to guarantee that they would be able to land safely on Yi Qian. She could only guarantee that she would hit the target and clear a path for the airborne soldiers. She aimed at the target and pulled the trigger with her slender fingers, wearing a pair of combat gloves. In the cold wind, the bullet left a small trail of fire as it pierced through the air towards the target on the ground with a sharp lethality. The air was compressed and the bullet cut a path through the thick fog. Even though the fog had not dissipated and the target on the ground was faintly discernible, the bullet hit the target as if it had grown eyes. A computer in the central control center emitted a rapid beeping sound. The young officer guarding the computer reported the current situation. The sniper has successfully hit the target on the ground. All radar jamming devices have been activated. All radar jamming devices were activated. Division Commander Kong's hands, which had been pressed against the table, began to show green veins on the back of his hands. His gaze became increasingly cold. With a long beep, the radar jamming devices were activated. The 3 helicopters lost their radars as if they had lost their eyes. They had relied on the experience of the pilots to complete the drill. The fuselage trembled from the impact of the airwave. Chief Commander Xia clenched his fists tightly. His expression was even colder than Division Commander Kong's. On the plane, there was a female Special Forces soldier who had been trained by the Army for 8 years. Nothing could happen to her. Absolutely nothing. Major General Yang's throat tightened as he stared intently. When he saw the military helicopter tremble, Major General Yang's throat trembled slightly. When he saw that the military helicopter was stable, he let out a sigh of relief. This drill really worried Major General Yang more than any other drill. How could he not be worried when the Army went to the Air Force formation? Yi Qian, who was born in the Army, would definitely not be able to escape in the air as a soldier who fought on land alongside a group of paratroopers who fought in the air. On the other hand, this training exercise was indeed a great opportunity for Yi Qian. She had strong acceptance and outstanding personal ability. When she went to the Navy for training, Commander Dong of the Navy did not want to let her go because of her outstanding performance. Now, Division Commander Kong had also taken a fancy to Yi Qian's personal ability and wanted to keep her. If she could become the first female Special Forces soldier in the sea, land, and air training. All kinds of worries had to be suppressed at this moment. Major General Yang couldn't help but close his eyes slightly after the first shot. Very good. Female soldier Yi Qian, who had never disappointed anyone, you did well. Father Fu had unknowingly walked to Commander-in-Chief Xia's side. He stared at the military helicopter that had returned to the air on the screen. His voice was a little cold as he asked, "The one who shot just now was my daughter, right?" Chapter 49-98. She asked with certainty. She asked with certainty. The problem was, the puzzled Commander-in-Chief Xia turned his head and asked, "Why are you so sure?" Father Fu's eyes were fixed on the screen. His face was tense, and his eyes were filled with fatherly love. "She's my daughter. Of course I recognize her. It's indeed Xiaoyi. You can recognize her even if she shows her knees. Brother Fu, you scientific researchers have a pair of eyes that are good at discovering details, right?" Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't hide anything. He didn't hide anything from Father Fu. Last night, he brought Father Fu to see Xiaoyi, but he didn't tell Father Fu exactly what he needed Xiaoyi to do. Why did she go to the Air Force when she's from the Army? Father Fu frowned and looked straight at Commander-in-Chief Xia. Is there a problem? Both father and daughter had the same reaction, as if they had discussed it before. Commander-in-Chief Xia smiled and said, "There's no problem. It's an opportunity for Xiaoyi. She has a bright future and can get opportunities that many soldiers can't even get until they retire. It's all training for her on the path of the military. Jade can't be made without being carved. Xiaoyi is a piece of beautiful jade, and she needs to be carved carefully to emit the beauty of jade. Don't think too much. With me around, Xiaoyi won't have any problems. Moreover, Xiao Ye's personality is extremely stable. She won't let anything happen to herself. Brother Fu, don't you think so? Seeing that his future in-laws' faces were clouded, he had to quickly coax his future in-laws to be happy. Father Fu was naturally happy that his daughter was being praised. The capable worked more and the talented were in higher positions. The corresponding responsibilities were also heavier. Father Fu was both happy and distressed. Sometimes I really hope that her aptitude is a little worse and not so outstanding. Sometimes I hope that she can walk a bright path that she likes. This person is really contradictory. Father Fu shook his head and sighed helplessly, but there was a deep sense of pride in his eyes. That was his daughter. She was outstanding, dared to compete with men, surpassed countless people of the same age, and left many people in the dust. He should be happy to see his daughter become a phoenix. He should be happy. Raising a daughter was different from raising a son. A daughter's parents only hoped that her life would be smooth sailing. They didn't want to be rich, they only wanted to follow their heart. As for a son, he had to be an indomitable husband who could shoulder the burden and protect the safety of the family. Commander-in-Chief Xia had never raised a daughter before, but he had the heart of a father who wanted to raise a daughter. Hearing this, he actually resonated with Father Fu and said emotionally, "Yes, a daughter should be doted on and doted on. We can't let the brats outside steal her away so easily." The most right. Father Fu was the only one who dared to ask this. Even Major General Yang didn't dare to say this. Commander-in-Chief Xia sneered. "If I adopted him, I would have thrown him out long ago. Do you think I would have let him rely on such a good girl like Xiao Yi?" Father Fu didn't know if it was because he didn't sleep well recently, but he suddenly felt a headache. Father Fu rubbed his temples and didn't talk about family Xia. Instead, he continued to talk about his daughter, Yi Qian. He could see that the family Xia and his father's relationship was not something that ordinary people could understand. It was self-contained. No one could imitate it, and probably no one could surpass it. Chapter 49-99. Is the military planning to let my daughter train with the airborne troops again? How long is the training planned? She won't be able to graduate without 2 or 3 years. After 2 or 3 years, she'll only be 24 or 25 years old. She's still young, so she can give it a try. He wanted to keep his daughter for as long as he could. He wanted his daughter to go to Family Xia's old 6th unit early. He was very assured that old 6 would take good care of his daughter. However, he always felt that she was a lamb in a tiger's den, so he was reluctant to let her go. Commander-in-Chief Xia always had a sense of propriety even though he cheated his son. He wouldn't cheat him too badly. He narrowed his eyes slightly. It still depends on the situation. Old 6th unit also has a similar training plan, so there's no need to specially go to the airborne troops for training. His future daughter-in-law was too outstanding. It was not appropriate for them to be separated by a long distance. It was better to be close. The old madam and the old master's whips were not for show. If Shang Rui complained to them again, he would be in his 60s and still be obediently whipped by his mother and father. Father Fu heard this and sneered. Father and son were father and son. No matter how much they cheated, they wouldn't cheat him too badly. On the screen, the 3 military helicopters without radar navigation and even with electromagnetic interference began to descend again. This time, the descent was much faster than the first time. It was like a heavy object falling vertically to the ground. Even through the screen, they could feel the weightlessness of losing their center of gravity. Yi Qian's body was light. When the military helicopter suddenly descended, it was as if its center of gravity had lost its center of gravity. His whole body was about to float out of the cabin door. However, the sniper rifle in his hand was steady. The steady hand was even steadier. Found the second target. Yi Qian, who was observing the ground, found the second target. Due to the interference of the radar, the pilot couldn't determine the height of the target. Whether or not he could hit the target in one shot depended on his own ability. The sniper's method of measuring the target's distance had its own way. Through Yi Qian's observation of the second target and the pilot's experience, the military helicopter through the thick fog began to descend. The officers and soldiers watching through the big screen held their breath. "How confident are you?" Captain Lei, who was also on the first plane, asked Yi Qian in a deep voice. "Can you hit him in one shot?" After measuring, calculating, aiming, and finally shooting, Yi Jian, who had been keeping his eyes close to the scope, calmly returned. 100%. I always like to hit the target with one shot. The second shot is equivalent to giving away half of your life to the enemy. I'm a person who cherishes my life. This Yi Qian was extremely confident. There was even a hint of arrogance in her expression. This arrogance came from the confidence in her heart. He was confident and confident. Even if there was a bit of arrogance, it made people feel that this was how it should be. No one would think that he was not living up to his name and was just bragging. Captain Lei laughed until his chest trembled. The second target was completed. He gave Yi Qian a thumbs up. The other 3 paratroopers in the plane looked at each other and also gave the female soldier a thumbs up. Machine 1 has completed the second target. Machine 1 has completed the third target. Machine 1, prepare to land jump. As Yi Qian quickly hit the third target, the 3 paratroopers on the plane leaped into the air one after another. The moment they jumped out, they directly opened their weapons. In the thick fog, 3 large white umbrellas successfully opened one after the other. What followed was the paratroopers' drill. Yi Qian successfully retreated. The ground lost contact with the air. The pilot carried Yi Qian out of the thick fog and out of the screen. Yi Qian was no longer the focus of attention. The paratroopers who completed the airborne landing in the thick fog became the focus of attention. Chapter 5000. Even though Yi Qian had left the screen, her superb sniping won the cheers of the entire audience. She was so outstanding, we soldiers should be like her. Commander-in-Chief Xia and Major General Yang took a deep breath at the same time and slowly loosened their clenched fists. It was finally over. She had returned safely. Father Fu didn't look at the screen anymore and quietly exited the room. The researchers outside were still busy. When they saw Father Fu come out, they greeted him happily. One of the engineers who participated in the design came up and gave Father Fu a big hug. Let's go and take a look at the waste collection. There are a few sets of data that still need to be analyzed. Do you want to go together? Okay, let's go together. Father Fu nodded. The waste collection point was a little far and they had to take a car to get there. Father Fu, who originally wanted to find out where his daughter would land, turned around and went back to work. He put his daughter's current situation aside. That was how researchers were. Family was never the most important thing. At this moment, Yi Qian's military helicopter was flying to the temporary landing site. Yi Qian put away her sniper rifle and pulled back her bent knee. Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her calf that made her whole body tremble. When she looked down, Yi Qian's eyes darkened. Her trousers were cut by a sharp object. The blood that flowed out was frozen by the cold wind. Purplish-red flesh curled up on the wound, and the white bone could be vaguely seen. Her calf was cut so deep that the bone could be seen. The fragment wasn't big. It was probably only half the size of a pinky nail. Otherwise, it wouldn't have left such a small and deep wound. Knowing that they were about to land, Yi Qian didn't alert the pilot. When the helicopter landed, Yi Qian, who had been holding back, told the pilot that she was injured and needed the help of the military doctor. The pilot was shocked. Injuries in the air were not minor. He hurriedly jumped from the pilot's seat to the cabin door. When he saw Yi Qian's wound, his pupils shrank. Don't move, don't move. wait for the military doctor. For safety reasons, a medical vehicle was arranged at the temporary landing site. There was also a military doctor accompanying the helicopter. The radar interference did not cover a wide range. As long as the helicopter flew out of the radar range, it would be able to contact the outside. The pilot immediately contacted the outside. Soon, the wheels of the ambulance rolled up clouds of dust as it sped over. Quick, quick, her right calf is injured. The wound is about 1 centimeter deep, and you can see the bone. The military doctor came over, and the pilot told him about Yi Qian's injuries again. The military doctor, who was holding a first aid kit, climbed into the cabin like a cat. Yi Qian was injured. The skin and flesh on his calf had been shaved off by a small piece of bone the size of a fingernail. The wound wasn't big, but it looked scary. When Commander-in-Chief Xia found out that Yi Qian was injured, his face sank. But when he found out that the situation wasn't too serious, and that even though a small piece of his bone had been shaved off, it wasn't fatal or crippling, and he only needed to rest for about 20 days, his gloomy face gradually improved. Major General Yang immediately said to the Commander-in-Chief, "Don't do something like this again. It's not Yi Qian's specialty. The risk factor is too high. We need to strengthen Yi Qian's aerial training. Her comrades in the team can even sit in fighter jet. She has to do it too." Commander-in-Chief Xia gave the order coldly. This was also the first order related to Yi Qian since he started his military service. As for Father Fu, when Commander-in-Chief Xia found out that Father Fu had driven out to collect scrap, Commander-in-Chief Xia breathed a sigh of relief. His daughter was injured right under his nose. How could Brother Fu bear it? Yi Qian's wound was treated quickly, which was already very lucky. When Captain Lei and the others found out that Yi Qian was injured, it was already past 7 o'clock in the evening. They had just returned from their training, so they naturally knew that it was very late. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.